Chapter 3368. Yi Jingyan and the others wore solemn expressions, their eyes full of bewilderment. With such a huge commotion, could old man Xiang have returned? Rumble. A bolt of lightning as thick as a bowl descended from the sky, landing above the Sacred Heaven Alliance headquarters. The defensive formation was activated, emitting a dazzling white light. Then, countless bolts of lightning began to rumble down one after another. The entire Spirit Wonder Mountain trembled. The items placed on the street rolled to the side of the road under the shockwave. Such a huge formation. If someone is undergoing the tribulation, what kind of talent and strength would that be? But is this really a tribulation? The thunder gradually weakened, and the seven-colored lightning that split the tribulation clouds also gradually disappeared. The shaking of Mount Spirit Wonder also gradually stopped. Quick, let's go to the Sacred Heaven Alliance to take a look. Alliance Chief Xiang can't have advanced, right? Stop joking. Alliance Chief Xiang just reached the peak of sea-splitting realm a few years ago. How could? The discussion was not over yet. Suddenly, 7 rays of silver light shot out from the Sacred Heaven Alliance headquarters, soaring into the clouds. Swish, 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 swish. 7 translucent long swords lined up and slashed at the tribulation clouds. Boom! After the loud noise, the thick tribulation clouds dissipated, revealing a clear blue sky. The afternoon sun shone down. It shone on the 7 translucent long swords lined up in a row. In an instant, a dazzling 7-colored radiance bloomed, almost blinding everyone. The foot of Mount Spirit Wonder fell into a deathly silence. Then, after a moment of peace, oh, what did I just see? Is it a peerless divine weapon? How can there be such a beautiful sword in the world? So, it wasn't someone undergoing the tribulation just now. Alliance Chief Xiang's treasured swords triggered the tribulation. Oh my God, I think these 7 swords are even more powerful than the Sacred Heaven Alliance's 9th Heaven Lightning Blade. Isn't that obvious? Although the 9th Heaven Lightning Blade triggered the tribulation back then, there were only 9 bolts of lightning, and they were not 7-colored at all. How many bolts of lightning were there just now? 81 bolts of lightning. Another divine weapon has been born for our floating island. Everyone's discussion entered Yi Jingyan's ears. He stared blankly at the shining sword in the sky. He was shocked, but he also felt his face hurt. Just now, he was still certain that Xiang Yunzhou was dead and that the Sacred Heaven Alliance could be easily bullied by him. But now, not only did Xiang Yunzhou not die, he even refined such a divine weapon. My lord. Suddenly, a subordinate's voice sounded in his ear. These swords don't have the aura of a cultivator. If we can snatch them away, Yi Jingyan's heart skipped a beat, his eyes revealing a greedy light. You guys immediately go and snatch those 7 swords, take the swords, and leave immediately. The subordinate obeyed and flew up. Before the crowd could react, more than a dozen people had already surrounded the 7 swords. Then, the 7 of them stepped forward and grabbed 1 sword each. Yi Jingyan was excited. However, in the next moment, blood splattered everywhere. The heads of the 7 people were directly chopped off. The others turned pale with fright and retreated in fright. Then, a tall figure appeared out of thin air. With a wave of his hand, the 7 swords disappeared into his palm. Who was that? Yi Jingyan suddenly took a step forward, wanting to snatch it. The man in the sky suddenly turned his head, and a pair of ice-blue eyes looked at him without a trace of emotion. Yi Jingyan's body immediately stiffened, as if he had fallen into an ice cellar. Chapter 3369. So scary. Who is this man? Just being looked at like that, he couldn't even muster up the strength to resist. Was Xiang Yunzhou's sword refined for him? Trying to snatch treasures from such a person was tantamount to seeking death. In a flash, Yi Jingyan had already made a decision. He didn't even care about the lives of his subordinates and ran for his life. Di Mingju didn't even lift his eyelids when he saw the ants running away. After collecting the 7 absolute swords, he entered the headquarters of the Sacred Heaven Alliance and landed in front of Mu Yin. Taking the 7 swords from Deming Ju's hands, Mu Yin simply couldn't bear a part with them. With a move of her divine sense, the 7 swords were taken into her sea of consciousness, surrounding the 7 absolute swords. Qi Huang said that the one separated from the Tian Mo Qin was the 7 absolute mother sword. The remaining one obtained through refining was the 7 absolute child sword. There was always only one mother sword, and it could only grow little by little through cultivation and understanding of swordsmanship and domain. Child swords, on the other hand, had to be strengthened through refining. Seeing Mu Yan's happy smile, Deming Ju reached out to wipe the dirt on her face, his eyes filled with tenderness and pampering. Very happy, Mu Yan nodded. I have become stronger. Only by constantly becoming stronger could she protect everyone, go to the Xiuxian continent as soon as possible, and be qualified to stand by Deming Ju's side and share life and death with him. Deming Ju chuckled. Ben Jun's face is the best. Mu Yin couldn't help but laugh. Of course, otherwise, how could you be worthy of such an excellent fiancé? The smile in Deming Ju's eyes grew stronger. Xiang Yinzhou and Steward Wu coughed softly on the side. Only then did Mu Yin come back to her senses. There were other people on the side. She coughed awkwardly and thanked Xiang Yinzhou sincerely. Xiang Yinzhou waved his hands repeatedly. Compared to Dr. Jun's great kindness to our Sacred Heaven Alliance, what is this small favor? This was not a small favor. Mu Yin remembered that in the final stage of refining, Xiang Yunzhou's spiritual power was completely overdrawn. He almost risked his lifespan to complete the sword refining. But Mu Yin didn't say much and just kept this favor in mind. She took the 2 silver centipedes sent by Steward Wu and left. Mayan had gained a lot from this trip to the Sacred Heaven Alliance. He subdued a golden crow, fire essence. After breaking through to become a golden immortal, he would be at the initial stage of the profound life realm. He had obtained 7 natal child swords. He brought back Ruan Yanin, a refiner with great potential. Most importantly, after the 7 absolute sword was successfully refined, she and Deming Ju had a good date in the vicinity of Mount Lingmiao for a few days. Ever since the two met and fell in love with each other, they had been apart more often than not. Even if they gathered together, there would still be many disturbances. The past few days were a rare moment of peace and tranquility. In the beautiful silver Gorgon forest, where green willows swayed and silver leaves fluttered, Mayan nestles in Deming Ju's embrace, reaching out to catch a silver leaf that falls from the treetop. Swaying gently, it was bright and translucent, as if it was condensed from moonlight. Shouldn't we go back? Mu Yin looked up and chuckled. Otherwise, Xiao Bao will think that we abandoned him. As soon as he finished speaking, the bet was made. Sealed with a kiss. It was gentle and lingering. The silver leaves rustled and fell, and the wind rustled the silver Gorgon forest. Suddenly, Deming Ju pushed away the person in his arms, panting slightly. His voice was hoarse. Didn't you want to enter Tianguang ruins to fight for the first place? There shouldn't be much time left, right? It's better to go now. Chapter 3370. Mayan's eyes are beautiful, but her mind is somewhat absent-minded. She stares blankly at his words. Now. The man's voice grew hoarser. Now. Otherwise, I'm afraid I won't be able to control myself. Mayan's face reddens, and she enters the Tian Mo Qin's space in a flash. Soon after, she activates the floating light jade key. In the magnificent silver Qilin forest, only Deming Ju is left. The tender expression on his face had completely disappeared. He looked at a certain spot in the void and said coldly, "Do you want to come out yourself? Or do you want me to drag you out? Ha! Indeed worthy of being the polar domain's sovereign lord. We were clearly hiding so well, but you actually found us." Silhouettes began to appear one after another in the surroundings. These people were all dressed in black with a strange symbol embroidered on their chests. His face was covered with a strange mask painted with blood-colored totems. The leader had long limbs and was nearly 3 meters tall. As he walked, his head bumped into the branches and leaves that hung down, making a rustling sound. Ming-ju narrowed his eyes. Long-handed race? Hey, does the Emperor know? The man in the lead let out a low laugh. What an honor. I thought that no one in this world knew about the long-handed clan's existence. Although he said it was an honor, his tone was indescribably indifferent. I am Heavenly Crane of the long-handed race. Greetings to the Emperor of the Polar Domain. While they were talking, two figures came from the horizon at lightning speed. In the blink of an eye, he's already in front of Ming-ju. Han Yi coldly says, "Who are you people? What do you want to do?" Sky Crane unhurriedly takes out a small black flag, sneering, "Han Yi doesn't need to know who we are, because very soon, all of you will die. It's useless even if you know. Who do you think you're talking to?" Han Yi is unable to restrain his anger. The long sword in his hand is unsheathed, and he suddenly thrusts it towards the Sky Crane. The immortal force around Mount Lingmiao seems to be attracted by a vortex, all of it converging towards the tip of Han Ye's sword. A strong wind blew in the silver dew forest, causing silver leaves to fly everywhere. A whirlwind chop suddenly chopped out. A huge crack appeared on the ground. Even the air seemed to have been sliced in half by the powerful sword energy. However, the Sky Crane, who was facing the terrifying attack, did not panic at all. He gently waved the small flag in his hand with his slender hand. Then, the flag, which was originally the size of a palm, suddenly grew bigger. It turned into a huge black flag and flew into the sky. The subordinates behind Sky Crane were not to be outdone. Each of them took out a black talisman and threw it into the air. Rumble. It was as if a thundercloud had covered the whole forest. Dense black mist spread out from the banner, and in a split second, the silver Chelan forest was so dark that one couldn't even see their own fingers. Shadow Thunder Curse. Han Yi cries out in alarm, wanting to retreat, but his body seems to be stuck in a swamp, unable to budge. The thick black mist had already wrapped around his body. A bone-chilling coldness rose from his heart, and his hair stood on end, causing his body to tremble uncontrollably. But soon, he couldn't worry about himself anymore. This was because the black mist that pervaded the flag had also wrapped around the Shadow Demon, and there was even a tentacle that had already drilled into the Shadow Demon's heart. If one was corroded by the curse, it would be like maggots attached to the bones, pestering them for life. Although he was alive, it was more painful than death. Just like the king of medicine, Han Chujio. Han Yi roared, struggling desperately. "Shadow Demon, be careful." Chapter 3371. Just then, two hands stretch out of thin air, grabbing him and Ing Mei by the back of their collars, pulling them out of the entangling black fog. A tall figure stands in front of them to protect them, its whole body emitting a pale blue light. It illuminates the silver Chelan forest where one can't even see their own fingers in front of them, and also drives away the thick black fog around them. Looking at the familiar figure that always stands in front of them, the rims of Han Ye's eyes redden. They should be the ones risking their lives to protect Jun Shang. But every time, it's this person who firmly protects them. Everyone thinks that Polar Domain's Jun is aloof and remote, aloof and unapproachable. How many people know what this man has sacrificed for the common people of the world, and what he has shouldered? Clap, clap, clap. A burst of applause is heard. Sky Crane shakes his slender legs as he approaches. Truly worthy of being Polar Domain's Jun. He clearly can't display even half of his strength on this floating island, and he's facing the most powerless curse, yet he can still be so calm. Ming-ju suddenly says coldly, "The rupture of the Spirit Rhinoceros Valley's boundary, was it your plan?" Sky Crane stares blankly, then immediately smiles. What is Jun talking about? Why can't I understand? Ming-ju doesn't pay attention to him, continuing, "The collapse of the skies, the ravaging of the poltergeist, was it also your handiwork?" The smile in Sky Crane's eyes slowly dissipates. His voice also turns cold. It seems that no matter what I say, Jun already firmly believes in your own judgment. Han Yi remembers the tens of thousands of lives that were lost in the collapse of the skies, and furiously says, "Are you crazy? We're all humans. Why did you destroy the boundary and attract the poltergeist? Do you know how many innocent lives have died in the hands of the poltergeist?" "So what?" Sky Crane's voice suddenly rises, interrupting him. Then he repeats himself, so what? Whether humans die, suffer suffering, or be consigned to eternal damnation, what does it have to do with me? I can't wait for all those hypocritical creatures to perish, and for this disgusting world to completely disappear. Ha. Han Yi looks at Sky Crane, who is laughing and gesticulating, his voice shrill and excited. His complexion turns unsightly. "Madman," Ing Mei said coldly. "The long-handed race has a special physique. Their bones, especially their limbs, can be used as core materials to forge sacred ancestral artifacts. The souls of the long-handed race also had denser, baleful yin qi than other humans, and were most suitable to be refined into ghost generals and ghost soldiers. More than 1,000 years ago, the only immortal king of the Long Hand clan died unexpectedly. Before the heir could be successfully cultivated, the entire Long Hand clan was exterminated by the greedy sections. All the skeletons of the Long Hand clan were refined into magic treasures, and all the souls of the Long Hand clan were refined into ghost generals, never to be reincarnated." "Enough!" Sky Crane roared, interrupting Ing Mei's words. He abruptly takes off the mask on his face, a pair of slender eyes suffused with a ruthless scarlet. He fiercely glares at Ming Ju's trio. "1,000 years ago, your polar domain also had a part in slaughtering the beasts of my Longhand clan. Ming Ju, I'm taking your dog life today. It's the heavenly Tao's reincarnation. You deserve to die." Han Yi is so angry that he still wants to argue, but is stopped by Ming Ju. It's useless to say more. The man's handsome face reveals a cold and disdainful smile. "If you want to kill Ben Jun, you'll have to see if you have the ability." With that, Ming Ju makes a grabbing motion towards the black flag above. Rip. Chapter 3372. There's a sound like cloth tearing, making the Sky Crane jump in fright. The black banner that's contaminated with such a powerful force of resentment can't even withstand Ming Ju. Continue to increase the black curse talismans. A thick black gas gushes out of the Sky Crane's body, merging into the banner in the sky. Those underlings also take out talismans, burning them with all their might. Han Yi and Ing Mei look at each other, then simultaneously unsheathe their swords. They soar up and ruthlessly hack at the banner in the sky. Rip! This time, the tearing sound is even louder. It's like the black clouds in the sky have been pulled into two halves, and the bright sunlight shines in through the gap. At the same time, a golden-red sun floats out from Ming Ju's body, floating above everyone. Pissed. The black-clothed men who've been illuminated by the sunlight suddenly let out mournful screams. The smell of burnt flesh and blood permeates the forest. The blazing sun is the strongest young object in the world. As long as it's born in a dark and sinister land, there's nothing that isn't afraid of the sun. The leaf fire, 9 luminaries can burn away all the sins in the world. The Sky Crane's complexion is deathly pale, his body on the verge of collapse. The left half of his shoulder is burning with flames. This is clearly very painful, but the Sky Crane laughs slowly. Ming Ju, the priest was right. I really shouldn't have underestimated you. Since peaceful means can't kill you, then I have no choice but to use my finishing move. As soon as his voice falls, the Sky Crane's slender hand suddenly opens. In the next moment, countless black gas tumbles and surges out from his body. Yeah, the Sky Crane lets out a mournful scream. When the clothes on his body, the flesh and blood wrapped around his bones come into contact with the black gas, they're corroded little by little. Even the flames that were originally burning on the Sky Crane's shoulder are directly swallowed up by the black gas. The situation of the other black-clothed men isn't much better than the sky cranes. They scream, but their eyes are filled with the already expected resignation and determination of their fate. The surrounding silver gorgon trees wither and fall to the ground one by one. In the blink of an eye, the fertile land under their feet turns into wasteland and quicksand. Within a few short breaths, the heaven and earth's vitality within a circumference of 10 li have been sucked clean. What is this? Is it a curse? The heavenly crane's crimson eyes unwaveringly stare at Deming-ju, its low and deep laughter turning into hysterical madness. Relying on my ability alone, of course I can't kill Polar Domain's monarch. But with this decaying curse, it's different. With my life as a sacrifice, I let this decaying life curse permeate every corner of the floating island. Everyone on this floating island would die without a complete corpse, never to be reincarnated. And you, the Polar Domain's sovereign emperor, a hypocritical villain with a sanctimonious appearance, always talking about the people of the world. Are you abandoning the billions of lives on the floating islands and letting them die? Or will I be infected by the decaying curse and fall into hell, never to live in peace again? Deming-ju, you don't have much time. Make your choice. Floating Island, Tianguang Ruins. The 7 sword lights scattered with a whistling sound, then suddenly gathered together and slashed down. Blood splattered everywhere as the last desolate beast screamed and died. Looking at the corpses all over the ground, Mu Yin smiles. A restriction? Being hindered by a restriction only means that her strength isn't strong enough. When her strength rises to the profound life realm, when her natal sword becomes a mother with 7 children, what would a restriction count for? Between the lush foliage, a small pale face pokes out. Black glass-like eyes stare at her without blinking, filled with childish admiration and longing. Chapter 3373. However, when Mu Yin looked over, her head immediately shrank back. The branches and leaves above did not sway at all, as if there was no one hiding here. Mu Yin curled her lips and said gently, "Little Guang, wait for me. I will go to Floating Light Island to find you soon." Suddenly, she felt a sharp pain in her chest. The void spirit ring on his finger emitted a dark red light. Mu Yan's heart thumped, and she suddenly had a bad premonition. She left Tianguang Ruins without a second thought. Deming-ju. As soon as they leave the Tian Mochin space, what they see isn't the beautiful silver Chilan forest, but rather a wasteland of quicksand filled with the stench of burnt decay. There were a few corpses half buried in the quicksand. There was not a single person in sight. Mu Yan's heart sinks. Panic that she had never felt before gripped her heart, causing her face to instantly turn pale. The voice that leaves her mouth carries a tremor that even she herself isn't aware of. Deming-ju? Where are you, Deming-ju? His right hand squeezed the ethereal spirit ring on his ring finger so hard that he almost crushed it. "Yin-yu, come out. I beg you, don't scare me." His hoarse voice sounded as if it would shatter at any moment due to extreme fear. However, the next moment, she was pulled into a familiar embrace. "Don't be afraid. I'm fine." Deming-ju hugs her tightly and gently kisses the top of her head. "Don't be afraid, Yin-yin. I'm here." In an instant, his heart that had almost jumped out of his chest returned to its original position. The bone-chilling fear was slowly dispelled by the man's warm embrace. Then, the tip of his nose smelled a faint scent of blood. Mu Yin abruptly straightens up and looks at Deming-ju's complexion. She picks up his hand to check his pulse. Deming-ju lets her do as she pleases, slightly lowering his blue eyes to look at her. The bottom of his eyes is filled with doting and deep-rooted gentleness. "Yin-yin, are you afraid that I'll die?" "Don't worry, I'm fine." Mu Yin glared at him. "You just sensed danger and deliberately sent me to the Tianguang Ruins, right?" Deming-ju just lowers his eyes to look at her, not saying a word. "Who attacked you? From the Xioshin continent? Are you hurt?" Mayan disappointedly discovers that Deming-ju's cultivation is too high. In the past, before she advanced to the immortal Emperor stage, she could barely diagnose his injuries. But now, there was nothing he could do. Diming-ju says in a low voice, "The injured one is Han Yi. I've already let Mei take him back to the Xioshan continent. They're nothing but clowns. They know I'm on the floating island and can't use their full strength, so they want to fish in troubled waters." Mu Yan, are you really not hurt? Diming-ju chuckles, lowering his head to rub the tip of her nose. You don't believe in your husband? Otherwise, Bin-jun will take off my clothes right now and let you examine me. Mayan blushes and rolls her eyes at him, but soon he couldn't help but feel worried and suspicious. Why do these people want to fish in troubled waters when they know you're on the floating island? Will you be in danger on the floating island? Diming-ju doesn't say anything. As expected, Mayan sighs and grabs Diming-ju's hand. 10 fingers intertwine, and she somewhat complains, "Why are you the aloof Diming-ju of the polar domain, and I'm just a mortal born in the Yenwu continent? If I want to marry you, I'll have to cross thousands of mountains and rivers, and cross 81 tribulations. Only then can I fulfill my wish." Diming-ju's face darkens. Marry me? Does this woman know who she's talking to? Chapter 3374. We're always separated more than together, and we have to worry about each other's safety. Even when I know that you're in danger, I'm burning with anxiety, but I can't rush to your side. Is there such a bitter fiancé in this world? Diming's thin lips tighten into a straight line. Mu Yan says again, "But Yin, you have to believe me. I can do it. Even if there's a mountain of swords and a sea of flames, a dragon's pool, or a tiger's den, I will definitely come to your side step by step. At that time, we will never be separated again." The 10 interlocked fingers suddenly clench, so tight that the bones make creaking sounds, so tight that the big and small hands seem to be fusing together. "So, you must promise me that you'll obediently wait for me in the Xioshan continent to hold your hand again. From then on, even if the seas run dry and the rocks decay, I won't abandon you in life or death." Diming-ju stares blankly at their interlocked hands for a long time. Then he suddenly pulls her into his arms. His low, hoarse voice carries a painfully repressed tide of emotions, ringing in Mu Yan's ears. "If your life is in danger, even if I have to tear the space apart and become enemies with the heavenly Tao, I will definitely rush over. So Yin, you must protect yourself." Mu Yan nods lightly. Diming-ju goes on, "If Han Yi and Mei are on the floating island, you'll become a target instead. I will withdraw all the people from the polar domain." This is exactly what Mu Yan wants to say. It's just that the reason is different. Diming-ju is afraid that she'll become target. Only now does Mu Yan know that the floating island is an outlying island where order has collapsed. Here, the rules of the heavenly Tao are full of loopholes. And the immortals of the Xioshan continent, like Diming-ju and Han Yi staying on the floating island, are the loopholes of the loopholes. Now, someone has already seized this loophole, planning in every way possible to kill Diming-ju. If Han Yi and Mei stay here to protect her, they'll become the target of wanton attacks. What about Xiao Bao? Mu Yan suddenly asks. Will it be dangerous for him to stay on the floating island? Diming-ju shakes his head. No, Xiao Bao was born in the Yenwu continent. He came all the way from the Great Path to the floating island, so he won't be rejected by the heavenly Tao. It might be safer for him to stay here. With that, his big hand gently presses on the top of Mu Yan's head. His eyes are filled with reluctance. "Yin, I'll wait for you." As soon as his voice falls, Diming-ju's figure fades, gradually disappearing. Mayan's pupils shrink. Her heart feels empty, as if it has been hollowed out. She doesn't know why, but she feels that Diming-ju is very strange this time. Was he really not injured? He gently rotated the void spirit ring between his fingers, feeling the calm energy waves it emitted. Mu Yan breathes a sigh of relief. The void spirit ring didn't respond, so Diming-ju should be fine. Xioshan continent, polar domain. The smooth surface of the Qinkuan mirror suddenly rippled like water. The entire space in the room seemed to be distorted. When the guard at the side saw this scene, His heart was filled with joy. He hurriedly shouted, "Elder Chong, Lord Xinglang, Lord has returned." Elder Chong, who had been handling government affairs, rushed over. The excited Star Wolf followed behind. Didn't Jun Shang say that he would accompany Miss June and the little Gongzi for at least 3 months? Why are you back so soon? As he spoke, the universe mirror flashed with a dazzling light. Then, 3 figures appeared one after another. "Greetings, Lord." Xinglang was about to kneel down excitedly, but his expression suddenly changed. "Han Yingmei, what's going on? How'd you get hurt so badly?" Xinglang rushed forward to help Han Yi up, but the latter shook him off. Chapter 3375. His tearful eyes look at Di Ming-ju, then at Elder Chong. He can't help but hoarsely shout, Call Medicine King, hurry! Save Jun Shang!" "What?" As soon as his voice falls, a black flame bursts out from Di Ming-ju's chest, making a sizzling sound. What is this?" Elder Chang's eyes widened as he exclaimed, "Curse! This is a curse! Jun Shang, how could you be corroded by the curse?" Di Ming-ju's complexion is deathly pale. There isn't even a drop of blood on his lips. However, there was no trace of emotion on his handsome face. He said calmly, "It's just a curse. There's no need to make a fuss about it. Go and ask Han Chujio to come over. Don't make this matter public for the time being." Yes. Elder Chong replied with a trembling voice. Then he stumbled away. Star Wolf's eyes were already red as he gnashed his teeth and said, "Who? In the end, who dared to hurt Jun Shang? Moreover, curse is a taboo for spirit cultivators. How would they dare to brazenly violate the iron law of the heavenly Tao?" Cough, cough, cough. Because the floating island has too many blind spots that the heavenly Tao cannot restrict. Yingmei props herself up and swallows the elixir that Mu Yin gave her. After catching her breath, she says, "Someone knows that June went to the floating island and deliberately intercepted you there. If it wasn't for Di Ming-ju's strength being so formidable that it completely exceeded the opponent's imagination, how could he be affected by the decaying curse just a little bit? If it weren't for Jun Shang's protection, she and Han Yi might not have been able to come back alive this time. How could they have imagined that there was such a secret organization in the Xiaoxian continent that hated the extreme domain to the bone? In order to kill Di Ming-ju, he didn't even hesitate to bury a quasi-immortal king with him. Di Ming-ju slightly lowers his long eyelashes, hiding the cold light in his eyes. "Xinglang, go investigate a person, daring to separate him and Yin Yin from each other for 3 months. Then be prepared to pay the price." Star Wolf hurriedly knelt down. "Yes. May I ask, who does Jun Shang wish to investigate?" "Netherworld priest, Mu Luyan." Star Wolf was stunned. He didn't even remember who Mu Luyan was at first. Were there priests in the Nether Realm? But he had always been obedient to Di Jun, so he bowed and left without hesitation. Because of Di Ming-ju's abrupt departure, Mu Yin is no longer in the mood to stay at Mount Spirit Wonder. After a simple farewell to Xian Yinzhou, he took Wan Yin back to Liberty City. However, along the way, Xiao Bao suddenly encountered a problem. In the Tian Mo Qin space, the little person's face is flushed. She leans against Mayan's arms, panting painfully. However, no matter how Mu Yin took his pulse and treated him, she couldn't find the cause of his illness. Mayan only feels as if her heart has been thrown into a thicket of thorns. It's tightly constricted, and it's so painful that she can't breathe. "Chi-Huang, what happened to Lil Bao?" Her mind was blank as all the bad thoughts flashed through her mind. She even recalled Bailey Inlo's words. An immortal body that was too pure might not live past the age of 10. 7 Brilliance stood in front of Lil Bao and looked down at him with a slight frown. His eyes were filled with doubt. After a long moment passed, he reached out and placed his hand on Little Treasure's forehead. Then he closed his eyes and sensed it. 7 Brilliance. 7 Brilliance opened his eyes and looked at Mayan with a complicated expression. After a long while, he hesitantly said, "It should be nothing. If it's nothing, why would he have a high fever and not wake up?" If Ben Zun didn't sense it wrong, He seems to have been affected by the power of his bloodline. Mayan was startled. The power of his bloodline? What do you mean? Chapter 3376. It's probably because Xiaobao's biological father has suffered a special injury, and their bloodline inheritance is a bit special. Normally, they don't sense each other, but once the inheritance hidden in the bloodline is triggered, there will be a short communication between father and son. Muyan is dumbfounded. To be clear, Xiaobao has suffered a part of the pain that stupid trash man is suffering now. Xiaobao's biological father? Muyan's mind is in a trance for a moment. That dark and damp cave, the hot breath, the embrace that almost melted her, and the tearing pain, she suddenly clenches her hands, her nails almost deeply embedded in her flesh. Qi Huang sees her suddenly pale complexion, and his mocking and cursing attitude instantly vanishes. His eyes are full of worry. "Hey, Zhu Muyan, are you okay?" Muyan gently shakes her head. After a long while, she takes a deep breath, touches Xiaobao's forehead, and whispers, "How long will Xiaobao endure the pain?" "Qi Huang, I'm not sure. It depends on the severity of the man's injury. But you can rest assured that although Xiaobao is suffering now, this pain is beneficial to him. When he wakes up, there's a great chance that his cultivation will improve, and he might even enter an epiphany." Hearing Qi Huang's words, Muyan lets out a long sigh. She holds Xiaobao, who is frowning in pain, in her arms and gently pats him. "Don't be afraid, Xiaobao. Nyangqin is here. No medicine or treatment can have an effect on this kind of empathy triggered by the bloodline inheritance." Muyan can only look on helplessly at her darling in pain. Xiaobao opens his eyes in a daze, his mouth spitting out a scorching breath. Nyangqin, Xiaobao, feels uncomfortable. Muyan's heart aches. She bends down and gently rubs her face against Xiaobao's burning cheeks. Nyangqin knows that Xiaobao is sick. That's why he feels uncomfortable. "Wait until he's well. Everything will be fine." Xiaobao stretches out a small hand, grabs the corner of Muyan's clothes, and gently pinches it. "Xiaobao is sick, Nyangqin. Will always be with Xiaobao, right?" Muyan's eyes redden. "Even if Xiaobao is well, Nyangqin will still be with you." Xiaobao shows a careful and happy smile. His ice blue eyes, which are burning red from the heat, ripple with childish happiness that can't usually be seen. Can Xiaobao also sleep with Nyangqin? It's been a long time since Xiaobao slept with Mother. Muyan quickly wipes the tears from the corners of her eyes and kisses him on the forehead. "Of course you can. When Xiaobao recovers, Nyangqin will take you shopping. Okay?" Xiaobao hasn't bought clothes for Nyangqin for a long time. Even the groggy Xiaobao nodded vigorously, and then said in a low voice, "Actually, Xiaobao bought. Mother's, father's, and Xiaobao's, the whole family. Xiaobao likes it very much." The immature voice became softer and softer, and finally fell into a deep sleep in Mayan's arms. His fever, which had not subsided for a long time, also gradually subsided. Muyan caresses Xiaobao's blushing little face, her eyes filled with endless tenderness and love. Qi Huang suddenly said, "Who is Xiaobao's biological father?" Muyan's expression stagnates. Then she curls her lips and says faintly, "It's just an insignificant dead person." Qi Huang shrunk his neck, not daring to ask again. He felt that every word that Muyan had just said was filled with murderous intent. Chapter 3377. The next day, Xiaobao's fever was completely gone, but he didn't wake up. Muyan landed her flying sword in town and bought some materials for alchemy. She hadn't entered the King of Medicine's inheritance space since she came to the floating island. At first, she couldn't even open the inheritance space because of the collapse of the space barrier. Later, she was busy building Liberty City and refining her natal sword, so she didn't have time for alchemy. But now Xiaobao was suffering from the pain of blood empathy. His body was weak, and he might need to break through later. She had to prepare a suitable elixir for Xiaobao. This time, she couldn't refine the elixir with spiritual power, but with immortal power. She had to ask her ninth master. This was a small town next to the Redstone River. Although it was only a small town, because it was between the Redstone River and Mankey City, there was an endless stream of cultivators. Even Mu Yin didn't expect that more than half of the elixirs she was looking for gathered here. I remember that the soul cultivation pool in Mankey City is about to open again. Have you found a companion who can go in with you? Alas, do you think it's so easy to find someone who shares the same mind? Mu Yin, who was about to leave, paused. Soul cultivation pool. If she remembered correctly, when fourth sister's mother Lung Ruolin Soul was missing, her father Lung Yaoshan and Lung Jishuan said that they would take her to the soul cultivation pool on the floating island to repair her soul. If fourth sister came to the floating island, she should go to the soul cultivation pool, right? Mu Yin hesitated whether she should go to the soul cultivation pool first. Just then, she saw a paper crane flying fast and stopping in front of Mu Yin. Mu Yin opened it, and her expression changed slightly. Second brother? How could it be? She didn't stay any longer and called Ruan Yanin to step on the flying sword and rush away. About an hour later, a girl dressed in red and dressed like a young man walked into the same shop as Mu Yin. This shop was the largest and busiest in the whole town. It not only sold elixirs, magic treasures, and various materials, but also people exchanged information and issued employment tasks. Shopkeeper, is the soul cultivation pool nearby? The woman in red knocked on the counter, put a top-grade crystal on the table, and asked in a clear voice. The shopkeeper put away the crystal with a smile and said, "Miss, go all the way east from this town. When you enter a canyon full of colorful immortal willows, you will see the entrance to the soul cultivation pool." Thank you. Seeing the red-clothed woman about to leave, the shopkeeper couldn't help but say, "Miss, please wait a moment." Ahem. Miss, are you planning to go to the soul nurturing pool alone? The woman in red blinked. Yes. Is there a problem? Miss, you don't live nearby, do you? No one can enter the soul nurturing pool alone. The woman in red was taken aback. Then how do I get in? Rumor has it that the soul nurturing pool was personally built by the first sect leader and sect leader's wife. They even merged their souls into the pool after their deaths. It could be said that the Hongyan sect and the soul nurturing pool symbolize the love between the sect leader and his wife. Thus, the soul nurturing pond has always had a rule. Only a man and a woman whose heart and mind are one with each other are qualified to pass through the spirit formation. I can't pretend, I can't hold a grudge, I can't feign civility, and I can't do it alone. So if you go alone, you definitely won't be able to enter the soul cultivation pool. Damn, I really can't go in alone. Being bounced out of the soul nurturing pool, Lung Yuma was so angry that she wanted to smash the array formation. Chapter 3378. What kind of lousy rule is this? Entering a place to nurture the soul and entering with a couple? Are they discriminating against single dogs? If only little junior sister was here. No matter how strong the barrier was, it would be broken in a matter of minutes. Haha, little girl, don't try. The rule of the soul nurturing pool is that only couples can enter. There are no exceptions. If we could enter so easily, why would we wait here? A burst of laughter came from behind. Many temporary houses and sheds were built outside the soul nurturing pool. Most of the people who waited here were there to buy a spoonful of water from the soul nurturing pool. Leaving the soul nurturing pool's water might not be as effective, but it still had the effect of nurturing the soul. But there was a small group of people who were not. And this small group of people were almost all men. Lung Yuma was about to leave and think of a way. However, he was stopped by a few muscular men with wide waists and long legs. Little girl, do you want to enter the soul nurturing pool? You actually came here alone. Don't you know that only couples can enter the soul nurturing pool? Why don't you let us help you? You can pick one of us and let's have sex under the rainbow, immortal willow for a few days. Wouldn't we be lovers after that? At that time, even if you want to have sex in the soul nurturing pool, I'm willing to accompany you. Looking at the men's greedy and lustful expressions, Lung Yuma's face turned cold. I'm sorry, I feel nauseous when I see your faces. If you really want to enter the soul-nurturing pool as a couple, I think you might as well go to the pigsty and find one suitable for you. Smelly whore, I'm giving you face, but you don't want it. The three muscular men were enraged. Two of them brought out their magic treasures, while the other one summoned a huge brown bear. Lung Yuma's face turned serious. The cultivation of these three people was much higher than the tribulation passing stage. They should have reached the third stage of Golden Immortal. Especially the person who summoned the brown bear. His strength was infinitely close to the fourth stage of Golden Immortal. If it was just one of them, she could barely deal with it. But there were three of them, she definitely could not fight them head-on. Thinking of this, Lung Yuma did not hesitate to stick a teleportation talisman on her body and turn to run. Smelly whore, you want to run? Do you think you can escape? Slut, since you refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit, then don't blame me for not knowing how to have tender and protective feelings for the fairer sex. Haha, big brother, don't be fooled by this whore's virtuous and chaste appearance. After being properly trained by Big Brother, who knows, she might really fall in love with Big Brother's bravery and willingly become Big Brother's mistress. The speed of the three of them was extremely fast. As they spoke, they kept on spewing obscenities. His hands did not slow down in the slightest. Countless poisonous needles containing powerful spiritual energy shot out from time to time. The brown bear's body was heavy, but its movements were extremely agile. Lung Yuma was almost hit a few times and fell from the sky. Roar! With a howl, the brown bear suddenly jumped into the sky. Its huge body fiercely hugged Lung Yuma, who was in the air. Lung Yuma quickly dodged. However, although she avoided the brown bear, she could not avoid the poisonous needle flying behind her. A numbing pain came from her shoulder. She groaned and finally fell from the sky to the ground. Bitch, run. Keep running. Do you really think you can escape from me? Chapter 3379. Haha, this girl looks really good up close. How long has it been since such a stupid and exquisite thing appeared in front of the soul-nurturing pond? Lung Yuma's heart sank bit by bit. Looking at the three people who were gradually approaching, her eyes revealed a look of determination. However, at this moment, Ba, lewdness is the chief of all evils, but those who are against reason and have a guilty conscience do not say that it is beneficial to do so. Moreover, retribution is clear. If you're not happy at all, every movement and every stillness will be observed by the gods. 10 eyes and 10 hands, everything will be done. Before the three benefactors do evil, please think twice. The gods are watching. A clear and gentle voice rang out in the silent forest for no reason. Lung Yuma looked up and saw a little monk wearing a golden red kasaya, holding a golden alms bowl in his hands. He put his palms together and looked at the three strong men with a gaze full of admonishment and compassion. Where did this damn monk come from? You dare to meddle in your father's business? If grandfathers like to play with women, then so be it. Could it be that the gods you speak of can control us? How can they control us? Could it be that they are lying on Grandpa's bed and listening? Grandpa is very brave, but he doesn't care at all. Damn monk, hurry up and scram. Otherwise, don't blame us for being impolite. The little monk chanted Ba again. His handsome face was filled with helplessness, but he could not help but continue. Benefactors, please think twice. There is no law in this world like a dream. Damn monk, are you courting death? All right, Grandpa will fulfill your wish. The strong man who summoned the brown bear was obviously angered. He glared at him and threw a punch at him. The other two strong men did not want to be outdone and rushed forward fiercely. The little monk shook his head lightly. His slightly rosy lips slightly hooked up, revealing a shallow smile. Lung Yuma, who was paralyzed by the poison needle, had a huge change in expression. Little monk, quickly leave. However, in the next moment, the three strong men who rushed over like cannonballs actually stopped in their tracks. Their raised fists and magic treasures froze in midair. Lung Yuma was stunned. What was going on? She did not see that the little monk's eyes were dyed with a golden red color that was almost the same as the kasaya. When Lung Yuma raised her head, the little monk's face had already regained its youthful benevolence and gentleness. Ba, it's good that you're able to realize your mistakes and mend your ways. I hope that you'll turn over a new leaf in the future and abandon evil for good. Buddha will always be with you. The three burly men nodded like puppets, and then left as if they were flying. Lung Yuma was dumbstruck by this turn of events. Why did they run? The small monk smiled and said, "They have realized their mistakes." "Are you kidding me?" Lung Yuma rolled her eyes and sized up the young and handsome monk from head to toe. "You can't be a disciple of some big sect or family on this floating island, right?" The more Lung Yuma thought about it, the more she felt that it was right. Those three people must have sensed that this little monk had an extraordinary background and couldn't afford to offend him, so they fled. The little monk didn't answer her question. Instead, he maintained a faint and gentle smile. Lung Yuma did not ask about his identity. Instead, she took out an antidote pill and swallowed it. Soon, the numbness on her shoulder disappeared. She stood up and bounced. Then, she bowed deeply to the little monk. "Thank you, Master, for saving my life. May I ask for Master's name and sect? I can't thank you with words, but I must repay you." Chapter 3380. Female Benefactor, You're Too Polite. The little monk seemed to be a little flustered by her solemnity. His handsome face unconsciously turned red. "I'm Jing Yuan. I don't belong to any sect. I just spoke out to stop evil. I didn't do anything." "Benefactor, you don't have to be so polite." Lung Yuma was a little amused by his reaction. The little monk looked younger than her. He had red lips and white teeth. When he smiled, there was actually a shallow dimple on his left cheek. It reminded her of Xiao Qi. Thinking of Xiao Qi and her junior sister, Lung Yuma thought of the soul cultivation pool. "Tisk, why is it so difficult to enter the soul cultivation pool? Otherwise, I'll go find my junior sister first." Hearing Lung Yuma talking to herself, Jing Yuan showed a slightly surprised expression. "Benefactor, are you also going to the soul cultivation pool?" Could it be that the little monk... "Ahem, Master, are you also going to the soul cultivation pool?" Jing Yuan nodded. "This time, I'm floating in the sky. I'm here for two things. One of them is to get some water from the soul cultivation pool." Lung Yuma pointed to the road. "Look, the soul cultivation pool is over there. But you can't go in alone. If you want water from a soul-nurturing pond, you could just wait outside and buy some from other people when they come out." Jing Yuan was stunned. "I can't go in? Why?" The water from the soul cultivation pool that he wanted must be drawn from the pool on the spot and put into a special container on the spot. Otherwise, the effect of the soul cultivation pool would be reduced by more than half. What use would it be to him? Seeing his clueless look, Lung Yuma couldn't help but laugh. "So you don't know the rules of the soul cultivation pool?" "Excuse me, what are the rules?" "Only couples or couples who are connected are allowed to pass through the enchantment outside the soul cultivation pool. Others may have hope, but not you, little monk." Jing Yuan was dumbfounded. He never thought that there would be such a rule in the soul cultivation pool. He frowned slightly, revealing a difficult expression. It was easy to break the enchantment on the floating island, but in this way, it would violate his master's instruction to not be discovered by anyone. Moreover, the soul energy in the soul cultivation pool was weak. Breaking the enchantment might destroy the pond inside. Jing Yuan frowned. Is there really no other way to enter the soul nurturing pool? Lung Yuma turned her head and saw the little monk's sad and disappointed expression. She couldn't help but ask, "Is entering the soul nurturing pool very important to you?" The small monk nodded. "My master suffered a serious injury many years ago. It took him a long time to recover. Now it's time for him to heal his soul, but the magic treasures we use to heal souls aren't pure enough. I'm afraid that my master's body won't be able to take it, so I want to bring the water from the soul-nurturing pond back." Lung Yuma muttered, "I also want to enter the soul-nurturing pool. Maybe my mother is inside." She sighed softly. "If pretending to be a couple is useful, I'll pretend to be a couple with you. As long as we can enter, it's fine." Hearing this, Jing Yuan had an idea. He raised his head and asked, "Female benefactor, are you really willing to pretend to be a couple with this little monk?" "What?" Lung Yumal was dumbfounded. She was just casually saying it. Didn't I make myself clear? The barrier of the soul-nurturing pool can only be passed by couples who are truly connected. The little monk put his palms together and revealed a somewhat bashful smile. "I have my own ways to deal with this." Chapter 3381. Carefree City, Floating Island. Just as the 7 absolutes sword landed on the ground, Luo Yu ran over hurriedly. Mu Yin didn't even take a breath. She quickly asked, "Is there news about second senior brother?" "What do you mean by second senior brother is in danger?" Luo Yu presented the paper in her hand to Mu Yin. "Take a look, 6th senior apprentice sister. We discovered this in Jade Sea City." Mu Yin takes the paper and reads it. Her pupils can't help but shrink. It turned out to be a wanted poster. 1 country, 3 alliances, 6 clans, and 8 great sects. The Wave-Treading Palace issued a wanted order to the dozens of surrounding towns and cities to catch the thief who stole their human puppet. On the wanted poster, there was a portrait of their second senior, Qinjiu. Second senior brother is a thief? How is that possible? In the entire Xiao Yao sect, if there was anyone who wasn't scheming, shrewd, or mischievous, it would have to be their honest second senior brother. Back in the Merak Mountains, when second senior brother was humiliated and framed by the people from the Silver Plume Palace, he did not resist much. Even if you beat Mayan to death, she wouldn't believe that second senior brother would steal from others. Luo Yu said angrily, "It must be this group of people who are distorting the truth and bullying second Shixiao. How dare you bully the second brother of the Xiao Yao sect? You must be tired of living." As they spoke, Wei Mian, Zhou Zixuan, and the others hurried over. "Greetings, miss." "Miss, did your trip go smoothly?" Mayan nods. "I'm indebted to Union Master Xiang for refining my natal sword. Now it's already a great success." The way Wei Mian looks at Mayan is already brimming with amazement, as if he's looking at a monster. Being able to make the Alliance Master of the Sacred Heaven Alliance personally practice with the sword. Moreover, in just a few short days, Mrs. Cultivation had actually broken through from the mortal cultivation realm to the mysterious life realm. No, it wasn't just Miss who was strong. There were also his 2 fellow disciples. Especially, Wei Mian could not help but look at Luo Yu again, his expression a little dazed. "Zixun, I'll have to trouble you with something." Mu Yin looked at the wanted poster in her hand and said in a deep voice. Zhou Zixun hurriedly bowed. "Please instruct me, Mississippi, help me issue a summoning order in the surrounding towns." "Order to assemble?" "This subordinate. What should I write on it?" "You only need to write 1 sentence. Liberty City by the ocean viewing cliff. It's time to go home." Zhou Zixuan was stunned for a long time before he bowed and agreed. After Zhou Zixuan left, Wei Mian asked, "Is young Miss going to clash with Over the Wave Palace?" Mu Yin curled her lips and sneered. "If people don't offend me, I won't offend them. If they don't provoke me, then naturally they'll be fine. But if they dare to bully my eldest senior brother..." After a pause, she looked at Wei Mian. "Is General Wei afraid of going up against one of the 8 great sects?" "Ha ha ha." Wei Mian couldn't help but laugh out loud. His face was filled with disdain and lofty sentiments. Towering Wave Palace is ranked last among the 8 great sections. On the other hand, our Xiao Yao army has sparing no effort to support us. In terms of military strength, we may be slightly inferior to them. But there's one thing that the Treading Wave Palace can't compare to us. What is it? Crown Wei retracted his gaze and said in a deep voice, "We have a unique divine battle general, but Towering Wave Temple doesn't." Mu Yin stares blankly at first. Then she can't help but laugh out loud. It seemed like this General Wei was quite arrogant, but she liked it. Only such a person was qualified to protect Shao Qi. "Luo Yu, go with General Wei to study the strength and strengths of Towering Wave Palace." Luo Yu stared blankly, a little unable to react. Usually, 6th senior sister called him Shao Qi. Suddenly calling him Luo Yu was very uncomfortable. Chapter 3382. When Wei Mian heard Liu's name, he trembled and looked at the young man in disbelief. What? What is your name? Liu blinked, not understanding why General Wei's expression was so shocked. He replied, My name is Lan Liu. Wei Mian felt a loud bang in his head. His knees almost gave way, and he was about to kneel down. Lan Liu, their little highness. Was it really their little highness? He was still alive? He was still alive? One of the 8 great families of the floating island, over the Wave Palace, was located in Shiluo City, surrounded by mountains on 3 sides and water on 1 side. Directly north of Shiluo City was a smooth cliff with no end in sight. It was called Broken Sky Cliff. Broken Sky Cliff and Sea Cliff were Autumn River Pavilion, one of the 8 great families, were connected. In the middle, there was a drunken evening forest filled with red maple trees. At this time, in the drunken evening forest, a man was carrying a girl on his back and running with all his might. Heavy panting and unsuppressible moans of pain echoed in the empty and silent forest. The man's clothes were tattered, and his body was covered with wounds of various sizes. But the most terrifying thing was the bloody wound on his head. It was 7 or 8 inches long, extending from his left ear to his right temple. It was as if someone had used a knife to cut open his entire head. At this time, this wound was casually sewn up with coarse thread. As he ran, bright red blood and white liquid would seep out from time to time. The man had an ordinary appearance and looked a little silly. He was the kind of person that people wouldn't even look at if he was thrown into a crowd. But the girl on his back was a beauty that people couldn't take their eyes off. Her small face was only the size of a palm. Her nose was exquisite. Her eyebrows were like smoke. Her teeth were white. Her lips were red. And her skin was smooth. At this time, the girl was quietly lying on the man's back, tears welling up in her eyes. She looked at the man with eyes full of guilt and heartache. The trees in front of them became sparse, and it didn't take long for it to open up. A sparkling lake appeared in front of the two. The girl reached out and patted the man's shoulder, her small mouth slightly opened, making a sound. The man hesitated, as if he wanted to continue forward, but under the constant patting of the young girl, he stopped. He found a clean rock and carefully put the girl on his back down. After landing, the young girl gestured with her hands, a worried expression on her face. However, the man understood what she meant. Second brother Chin, we've been running for a long time, but they haven't caught up. Shall we take a rest by the lake? You're injured so badly. You need to be treated immediately. It turned out that the girl was mute. At this moment, the man standing in front of her immediately understood the meaning of her strokes. It was the second senior of the Xiao Yao school, Qin Jiu, whom Mu Yin and Luo you were looking for. Seeing the young girl's actions, Qin Jiu nodded her head and took out 2 medicinal pills from her bosom. She swallowed one and handed the other to the young girl. Little Qing, eat it. The medicinal pill refined by junior sister is very good. The girl called Little Qing was called Qing. Hearing this, she revealed a bashful smile and reached out to take the pill from Qin Jiu's hand. During this time, the girl's slender and fair fingertips touched the man's rough palm. Qing blushed and hurriedly pulled back, putting the pill into her mouth. The injuries on her body began to heal after the pill took effect, but the hideous scar on her forehead didn't show any signs of healing. Chapter 3383. Qin Jiu's eyes were slightly blurred, and his body could not help but sway. Qing was shocked and hurriedly rushed over to support him. His hand was as cold as a corpse. At this time, Qin Jiu could clearly use spiritual power and take pills, but his temperature was like a lifeless corpse, and his eyes gradually seemed to be covered with a layer of white mist. Qing knew what that meant. Puppetry. Very soon, Qin Jiu would become a puppet that could be controlled and used by others. Tears fell from the girl's red almond-shaped eyes. Don't cry. Qin Jiu panicked and reached out to wipe the girl's tears. But his hand was so rough and ugly, and only lightly touched the girl's soft cheek leaving a red mark. Qin hurriedly retracted his hand, and his whole face was red. At the same time, there was an indescribable pain and sorrow in his heart. He did not want to see the girl in front of him cry. Where does it hurt? Qin could not speak fluently, and at this time, he was even more anxious and at a loss. Let's go. I'll carry you on my back to find little Junior's sister. If it's cured, it won't hurt anymore. Chuqing shook her head, wiped the tears on her face, and made a gesture. I don't hurt. She had just cried, and her eyes were red, and her nose was red. At this time, because of shyness, even her cheeks were somewhat red. She was indescribably cute and pitiful. Second brother, I don't hurt. I'm just afraid that you'll hurt. Qin was startled and immediately patted his chest. I'm not afraid of pain, really. It doesn't hurt at all. After saying that, he realized that his face was red. The slow him at this time, at the tip of his tongue, chewed the words, I'm just afraid that you'll hurt. An inexplicable ripple that had never appeared before arose in his heart. Chuqing wiped her eyes and revealed an embarrassed smile. Suddenly, a bird flew in the sky. Chuqing's eyes lit up, and she suddenly swung her small hand upwards. Swish! After a moment, the bird fell in front of the two. Chuqing waved her hands at Qin. Second brother, are you hungry? I'll cook something for you to eat, okay? Qin hurriedly said, No, I'm too tired. Seeing that he refused so quickly, Chuqing pouted a little angrily. Second brother, do you dislike me? I know I didn't cook well before, but I've learned. It's true. If you don't believe me, try it later. Qin watched as the little girl ran around happily, picking up stones to build a temporary stove. Then, he nimbly dealt with the birds by the water's edge. His heart felt warm, sour, and a little confused. Little Qin always called him second brother and always acted as if they knew each other. But why couldn't he remember anything at all? Was it because he was too stupid? Had he forgotten everything in the past? Or he wasn't the second brother that little Qin had mentioned? Thinking of this possibility, Qin felt a tightness in her chest. He subconsciously did not want to think about it. When Chuqing handed over the roasted food, Qin revealed a silly smile and took it. The girl opposite him was also holding a piece of roasted wing in her hand, but she was not in a hurry to eat. Instead, she blinked her watery almond-shaped eyes, staring at Qin without blinking. Qin was indeed hungry. After wolfing down a few mouthfuls, he realized that the little girl had been looking at him. He was startled. He, who had always been slow and silly, suddenly seemed to have an aperture opened at this moment. Chapter 3384. Remember in 1 second, 800 mail sign / say net, wonderful pop-up window, free reading. Qin said loudly, It's delicious. Little Qing's roasted food is the best. The little girl on the other side immediately smiled. Joy and happiness almost overflowed from her eyes. But she felt shy, so she hid half of her face behind the big roasted wing. While laughing, she ate delicately, one bite at a time. Qin suddenly felt that it would be good if it could continue like this. But at this moment, an intense pain came from his brain. Qin screamed and fell to the ground, his body twitching nonstop. Chuqing threw away the roasted wing in her hand, rushed over in panic, and helped Qin up. However, what she saw was the completely open wound on Qin head and his increasingly blurred and white eyes. When this pair of eyes completely turned white and lost their luster, that was when he was completely puppet-like. Chuqing opened her mouth, wanting to speak, wanting to call out to her second brother, but she couldn't even make a sound. Suddenly, the bone whistle on Chuqing's waist made a beeping sound, shaking nonstop. Oh no, they're coming. If second brother was captured by them, he would become a real puppet, never to be reincarnated. What should I do? She couldn't let second brother fall into the hands of this group of people again. Absolutely not. The weakness on the girl's face faded little by little. She gritted her teeth and used her fastest speed to dig a hole under a huge rock by the lake. Then, She buried Chinjio. Chinjio opened his eyes in a daze. He saw the pale girl with tears in the corner of her eyes, but she tried her best to smile and draw towards him. Second brother, promise me. Wait here for little Qing. Don't come out. No matter what happens, don't come out, okay? Chinjio opened his mouth, wanting to speak. The girl's tears finally couldn't help but fall. Second brother, I beg you. Promise little Qing, okay? Chinjio's consciousness was already blurred. In his chaotic mind, there was only the girl's tears and the word please drawn with a trembling hand. Little Qing, don't cry. As long as you don't cry, I promise anything. The bone whistle on his waist vibrated even more violently. In the distance, he could already hear noisy footsteps and the roars of summoned beasts. They must not find out that second brother is here. Qing made a camouflage of the filled pit, then hurriedly rushed to the dense forest on the left. D. Not long after, the sharp sound of a bone whistle came from the left side of the forest. The people who had just rushed to the lakeside heard the whistle and were overjoyed. It's that little bitch, Qing's bone whistle. He's over there, chase after him. Qing glanced at the lake in the distance, then ran forward resolutely. She couldn't fly, so she couldn't escape no matter what. But at least second elder brother still had a chance to live. Second brother, it was you who protected me 15 years ago. Now, it's my turn to protect you. Please, you must live well. As the crowd left, the lakeside regained its silence. After a long time, a loud explosion suddenly came from the bottom of the rock. The huge boulder was blasted into pieces. Gravel and mud flew into the sky and fell down like rain. Amidst the rain of rocks, a man covered in blood and mud stood up shakily. There was a huge wound on his head, and the skull and brain inside were faintly visible. His eyes had almost turned a strange white color. Chapter 3385. At this time, Chinjio looks like a corpse, not a living person. But he shakily stands up, turning his head mechanically, as if looking for something. Xiao Qing, where is Xiao Qing? He's going to find Xiao Qing. He takes a step, but suddenly stops. No. Xiao Qing told him to wait for her here. He has to wait. Even if he dies, he has to wait for Xiao Qing to come back. Bang! Amidst the training of the Xiao Yao army, a person covered in blood suddenly falls down. Even if these soldiers have been trained to remain calm, even if MT Tai collapses in front of them under these months of devilish training, they're still shocked at this time. What's going on? That 1,000-meter-high cliff, falling like this, isn't she dead? Hey, it seems to be a little girl. All the bones in her body are broken. So pitiful. All of you be quiet. Iron Hammer roars, and the originally noisy army immediately becomes so quiet that a pin drop can be heard. What's all this noise about? What's all this noise about? Have you forgotten the qualities that the boss taught you soldiers should have? Whoever makes a fuss again, I'll double the amount of training. The surrounding people keep quiet out of fear. Iron Hammer snorts coldly. Looking at the bloody person under the cliff, he can't help but frown. You guys carry her to the city lord's mansion. Iron Hammer points at a few female cultivators. If the miss is willing to save her, it can be considered as having picked up a life. If the miss is not willing, you can directly throw her out of the city. In fact, the people who came out of the gravel hill, including Iron Hammer, did not have much sympathy. But the woman in front of them is so miserable that people can't help but want to pity her. Looking at her bones, she should be in her early 20s, so thin and delicate. But all the bones in her body are broken, and the exposed skin is full of poisonous insect bites. Moreover, these scars are deep and shallow, clearly not caused by falling from the cliff, but man-made. Iron Hammer shakes his head, throwing these boring thoughts to the back of his mind. No matter how pitiful she is, it has nothing to do with him. This little girl only has half a breath left. It's estimated that even the miss may not be able to save her. If she really dies, it can only be said that her fate is bad. Someone fell from the cliff? Hearing her subordinates report, Mayan shows a surprised expression. Bring him in. When the bloody man and the blood-soaked stretcher enter the room, Mayan and Luo Yu's faces change. How did he get hurt so badly? Wasn't everyone on the floating island at the nascent soul stage or above? Even if he didn't fall from the cliff, it's impossible for all the bones in his body to be broken like this. Mu Yin grasps her pulse and calmly examines her for a while before coldly saying, "The bones in her body weren't broken by falling off a cliff, but by someone forcibly breaking them inch by inch." Luo Yu sucked in a breath of cold air. Which pervert is so cruel? Then the bite wounds on her body. Those densely packed wounds would make one's scalp go numb. It was to the extent that her true appearance could no longer be seen clearly. One could imagine what kind of pain and torment this young girl, who was not even 20 years old, had suffered. Sixth senior sister, can she still be saved? Mu Yin stuffs an elixir in her mouth, then takes out the Tian Mo Chin. While plucking the strings with her fingers, she says, "I'll first protect her heart, keeping her alive. As for whether she can really be saved, and whether she can still cultivate like a normal person after being saved, they can only resign themselves to fate." Chapter 3386. The sound of the zither slowly resounds, from agitation to lingering, from endless torrents to weeping. The girl on the bed moans in pain and slowly opens her eyes. The fear and despair in her eyes makes Liyu's heart ache. He comforts her softly. "Miss, don't be afraid. My sixth sister will save you. You'll definitely be fine. Ah, ah, ah." The girl opens her cracked lips and lets out a hoarse and broken voice. Tears keep flowing from her eyes, desperately trying to express something. However, she can't say anything. Hey, don't move. Right now, your bones are broken one after another. How are you going to move again? However, the girl only cries as she draws something with her pen, her mouth constantly making sounds. That sound is coarse and unpleasant, but it's like a bird crying blood, making people feel unspeakably sad. Mu Yin suddenly asks, "Do you want to ask us for help?" The girl's eyes shine with hope, and she nods heavily. Mu Yin asks again, "You can't speak, but can you understand what we're saying?" The girl nods again. Mu Yin thinks for a moment. Shao Qi, go and call third brother over. Chu Moli quickly pushes the wheelchair over and looks at the girl's drawing. He smiles slightly. "She wants us to go to the lake to save someone. Be quick, otherwise it'll be too late." She doesn't know the specific address, but it's in the southeast of Zue Wan Forest. That person is buried under the biggest rock by the lake. Mu Yin is startled. Save someone? This girl is on the verge of death herself, yet she still wants to save someone. However, Mu Yin's heart softens when she raises her head and meets those clear almond-shaped eyes full of pleading. She says without hesitation, "Okay, I'll immediately send someone to Zue Wan Forest to look. Don't worry, your injuries are very serious. You must receive proper treatment." Seeing her agree, the girl shows a gratified and grateful smile on her face. Finally, she can't hold on any longer and fainted. Boyu raises his hand. "Sixth sister, I'll go." Mu Yin thinks for a moment. "All right, Shao Qi, bring some men." To be able to torture a little girl like this, the other party is definitely not a good person. "You must be careful." "Luo, sixth sister, rest assured I understand." Hearing that Luo Yu was going to the drunken evening forest to look for someone, Wei Mian, who was training his troops, abandoned his tens of thousands of men without hesitation. "Butcher, bring a team of elites and follow me to protect little seventh young master." Butcher was confused. Seventh young master has just transferred some people from the 9th squad over. How could that bunch of trash from Team 9 protect the seventh young master? Cut the crap and follow me. Butcher. Was this impatient person in front of him really the boss who had always been lazy, who didn't show his emotions even when he was paralyzed? Also, why did boss suddenly pay so much attention to seventh young master? Even Luo Yu felt that it was strange. In fact, Uncle Wei had been taking special care of him since he arrived at Liberty City. During this period of time, her eyes were often glued to him. He looked as if he wanted to say something, but was hesitant. "Seventh young master, are your parents still alive?" Luo Yu heaved a sigh of relief when she heard Wei Mian's careful question. Uncle Wei, don't call me seventh young master anymore. Just call me Xiao Qi like Sixth Sister does. Luo Yu smiled. I've never seen my parents. From the time I can remember, it was my master and eldest brother who raised me. Chapter 3387. Remember in 1 second, 800 mail sign, small, slash, say, net, wonderful pop-up window, free reading. Wei Mian anxiously asks, Who is your master? Luo Yu gives him a meaningful look, then slowly says, My master lives in the Xiozhen continent. His name is Shiqing. Hearing the unfamiliar name, Wei Mian shows a lost expression. Looking at the youth's familiar face, he can't help but feel hopeful. Is the person in front of him really his little highness? Is he the savior of the floating island that contracted the mythological beast Bai Zhe? Perhaps the mist knows something. Wei Mian feels that when Mayan called out the name Luo Yu that day, she looked at him with a meaningful gaze. He can't be anxious right now. 20 years had passed, so what was this little bit of suffering compared to it? His little highness's safety is the most important. Luo Yu smiles and asks, Uncle Wei, you're so powerful as a general? Where did you work before? The Three Alliances, the Six Great Families, or the Lan family empire? Wei Mian's mind, which had just relaxed, suddenly tenses up again. He looks at Luo Yu nervously, his breathing unconsciously becoming rough. But before he can say anything, a shout suddenly comes from a distance. There's someone there. That little slut Shiqing might be hiding there. Along with the voice, the sound of hurried footsteps and the rustling of leaves as they fly quickly approach. After seeing Luo Yu and the others clearly, they immediately show a disappointed and dissatisfied expression. Who are you people? What are you doing sneaking around in the drunken evening forest? The one speaking is a young cultivator with oily hair and powdered face. His gaze sweeps over Luo Yu, Wei Mian, and the clearly well-trained guards behind them, his face full of suspicion. Luo Yu rolls her eyes. What does it matter to you what we do? I think that this drunken evening forest doesn't seem to belong to any sect or family, right? I like to wander around here or fight dogs. What do you care? The Xiaoyao army behind them huffed. The young cultivator stares blankly at first, then realizes that he's calling him a dog. He immediately becomes angry from embarrassment. Little bastard, do you know who you're talking to? Believe it or not, I'll make you. He hasn't finished speaking when he's stopped by a middle-aged man dressed like a scholar. The man's expression was gentle and refined, but he had a hooked nose, which made his face look a bit hypocritical and ruthless. He cupped his hands toward Luo Yu and Wei Mian and said, I'm Jiang Zhulin of the Over the Wave Palace. May I know which sect you two are from, and what are you doing in the drunken evening forest, which is so desolate? The drunken evening forest was located at the top of a 10,000-meter tall cliff. The spiritual energy there was thin, and spirit beasts were extinct. Even flying at low altitudes could only be done at a low speed. Ordinary people would not come to this place without any reward. Luo Yu smiled innocently, and there was even a hint of worship in her eyes. So it's one of the 8 great sects over the Wave Palace. For people like us who came from small sects to be able to meet such great people like you, it is really a blessing of 3 lifetimes. The young cultivator immediately laughed complacently. Hee hee, you flatter us the moment you hear that we're from the surmounting Wave Palace. Who's the dog here? Luo Yu smiled nonchalantly. I am a dog. I'm a dog. The young cultivator felt refreshed, and even his chin was raised high. Jiang Zhulin, on the other hand, slightly narrowed his eyes and still asked gently, We're in this drunken evening forest looking for the thief who stole our sect's treasure. Did you see him? As he spoke, he directly took out the arrest warrant for Qingjiu. He continued, This thief not only stole a commander-level puppet, but also kidnapped the daughter of the Lord of the Over the Wave Palace. This is an unforgivable crime. If you know his whereabouts, please tell us. Chapter 3388. Luo Yu looked at the arrest warrant in his hand and lowered his eyes. His gaze was cold, but he was still smiling innocently, like a young noble who had run away from home. He tilted his head and looked at the warrant, hesitating. I think I've seen him before, but I don't think I've seen him before. What? You've seen that thief? Quick, tell me, where did you see him? Luo Yu pretended to be hesitant. I saw a man and a woman at the other end of Drunken Evening Forest. The woman seemed to be heavily injured and was covered in blood. The man was tall, but his side was facing me, so I didn't see him clearly. As he spoke, he pouted and showed an unhappy expression. It's all because you didn't allow me to watch the show, Uncle Wei. I didn't see that man's face clearly. Uncle Wei had a doting expression. Young master, that man was filled with a bloody aura. You came out to train and have fun. There's no need for us to provoke such a fiend. Master, the young man trembled with excitement. It's Qinjiu. It must be Qinjiu and Inchuqing. This time, even Jiang Chulin couldn't remain calm. Young master, do you remember where those two people are? Luo Yu pretended to recall and said hesitantly, This Drunken Evening Forest is full of twists and turns. I really can't tell you which direction it is, but I can control the little puppet that leads the way. As long as you follow me, we'll definitely find that place. As he spoke, a palm-sized bee flapped its wings and appeared in the air. I heard that Treading Wave Temple is best at puppets. Today, I can be considered to have helped several seniors, so I don't want the reward on the wanted poster. Can Senior Jiang introduce me into the Over-the-Wave Palace? Even Jiang Chulin, who was shrewd, couldn't help but reveal a proud expression. If you can really lead us to that audacious thief, introducing you to the towering Wave Palace will be as easy as turning over a hand. An hour later. We're here. Look at that drunken Wanfeng in front. I saw the man and woman there. Hearing Luo Yu's agitated voice, Jiang Chulin hurriedly led everyone from the towering Wave Palace over to investigate. There are indeed traces of cultivators here, but their auras are very mixed. It seems like there are more than two people. Could it be that someone else found them first? As they were discussing, they heard a low chuckle coming from behind them. Of course, the auras here are very heterogeneous, because there are not two people at all. Sha sha sha. The surrounding Zhe Wanfeng let out the sound of leaves rubbing against each other. Immediately after, cultivators wearing the same clothes as the young guard walked out of the forest one by one. 10, 2100, 500, 1000. Everyone was wearing the same clothes. Every single one of them landed on the ground without a sound, moving forward and stopping at the same time, their auras coming from the same source. Jiang Chulin's expression changed drastically, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. How could this be the bodyguard of an aristocratic young master from some small sect? This was a well-trained army. Who the hell are you? Of course it's someone who wants your lives. Luo Yu pinched the way-guiding bee and looked on casually. The corners of her mouth curled into a faint smile, and her two dimples could be faintly seen. Are you crazy? We're from Treading Wave Temple. If you dare to touch us, aren't you afraid? Before he could finish shouting, Luo Yu had already raised her hand and gently slid down from the air, making a beheading gesture. Chapter 3389. In the next moment, the 1,000 cultivators in the forest moved at the same time. Jiang Chulin's expression was extremely gloomy, but he didn't care about these 1,000 soldiers. Almost every one of them was only at the mortal cultivation realm. If they wanted to keep him a peak profound life realm cultivator, they would need to see if they had the ability to do so. But he didn't see that behind Luo Yu, Wei Mian's eyes lit up with a silver light, his pupils dilating and focusing. 15 minutes later, there was a large hole in Jiang Chulin's chest. He slowly fell down with his eyes wide open. Even in death, he didn't understand. How could he die? He was a peak profound life realm expert. Even if he couldn't win against a group of mortal cultivation realm cultivators, he could at least escape. But why did he realize that he had no way to escape from the start of the battle? Besieged on all sides and in despair, he could only face Battle General. That was an army with a battle general commanding them. This was the last thought in Jiang Chulin's mind. Luo Yu walked forward and saw the corpses of towering Wave Palace cultivators on the ground. His face darkened, and his eyes showed some anxiety. He vaguely had a bold guess. The person that the young lady who fell from the cliff and almost lost her life wanted to save might be his second senior brother. Uncle Wei, we have to be quick. I'm afraid my second senior brother is in danger. Wei Mian nodded, his voice gentle with a hint of respect. Seventh young master, don't worry. We will send everyone out. Even if we have to turn the entire drunken evening forest upside down, we will definitely find him. On the other side of the drunken evening forest. Elder Zhao, we found him. It's a human puppet. An excited voice sounded. Zhao Rong, who was using his divine sense to explore, heard this, and his eyes lit up. He hurried over, looking at Qin Jiao, who was sitting beside a rock with his eyes covered. Zhao Rong couldn't help but laugh excitedly. Our towering Wave Palace's only monarch-level human puppet is finally in our hands. Huh? On the floating island, there was a special type of cultivators called Spirit Masters. Spirit Masters were usually split into two types, Summoners and Puppet Masters. Whether it was the spirit beasts summoned by Summoners or the puppets created by Puppet Masters, they were all split into 5 levels. Normal ranked, elite ranked, commander ranked, monarch ranked, dominator. On the floating island, no one had ever seen a sovereign summoned beast or puppet. There were only a few overlord-level beasts. The strength of the Over-the-Wave Palace was at the bottom of the 6 families and 8 sections. That was because they were only good at puppets. The puppets that they could manufacture and control were only at the commander level. 14 years. A whole 14 years. Zhao Rong held a black bone whistle in his hand. His eyes were shining with unspeakable resentment. Suddenly, he lifted his leg and kicked Qin Jiao to the ground. Lowly thing. Back then, my surmounting Wave Palace had to expend countless treasures and lives just to create you. A mere human puppet actually dared to run. How dare you run? Do you think you can escape from the control of the soul-making whistle? After Qin Jiao was kicked to the ground, it seemed as if it didn't feel anything. It sat up in a daze and continued to lean against the rock. Zhao Rong took a few deep breaths before saying, "Inform everyone around the drunken evening forest that we've found the puppet." Haha, our contribution this time is too great. It's mainly because of Elder Zhao's leadership. Zhao Rong's face revealed a bit of pride. He picked up the black whistle and blew it. Come, let's return to surmounting Wave Palace. The surrounding disciples hurriedly took out their flying swords and soared into the sky. Chapter 3390. However, after flying for several meters, Zhao Rong suddenly felt that something was wrong. The human puppet didn't follow. He suddenly turned his head and saw that Qin Jiao was still sitting beside the rock, like a lifeless puppet. But if he looked at his movements, he would discover that his hands were firmly locked into the rock, his body slightly trembling, unwilling to move a single step. What's going on? His appearance has clearly been completely puppetized. The soul-making whistle should be able to control him. Zhao Rong flew over with a sullen face and blew the bone whistle again. Human puppet 122. Follow me. He clearly saw that Qin Jiao's body below trembled, as if about to stand up. However, the next moment his body that was about to move was restrained by his hands that were firmly inserted into the rock. He cannot leave. Shao Qing had said to let him wait here for her. If he left, what would Shao Qing do if she couldn't find him? Elder Zhao, this? It's already been so long. Could it be that he still hasn't been puppetized? Zhao Rong's expression turned ugly as he gritted his teeth and said, "Break his fingers and take him away. He's clearly a puppet on my towering wave temple, yet he dares to rebel against his master." The disciple under him responded, "Yes." Their actions were very simple and crude, directly taking out an iron rod imbued with spiritual power and ruthlessly smashed it towards Qingjio's hands. Crack! Crack! The sound of bones breaking rang out one after another. Everyone who heard it felt their hairs stand on end. But Qingjio, whose hands had been broken, seemed to not feel it all. However, when the people of Towering Wave Temple threw out the immortal binding demand to pull him up from the ground, his eyes, which were covered with white veil, overflowed with a trace of bone-chilling scarlet. Ah! Bastard, you actually dare to bite me. What the hell? Just a mere human puppet. Zhao Rong's face was cold as he expressionlessly said, "Pull out all his teeth. Next, if he uses his hands to resist, cut off his hands. If he uses his feet to resist, cripple his feet. In any case, he's just a puppet. When the time comes, think of a way to replace him. Since his soul is still lingering in this body and refuses to dissipate, I'll let him have a good taste of what it's like to be unable to live or die." The disciples of Towering Wave Palace nodded repeatedly. Someone leaned over to pry open Qingjio's mouth. Someone took out a pair of pliers and walked towards Qingjio with an evil grin. At this moment, there was a loud bang. The drunken evening forest was surrounded by strong winds and huge waves. Zhao Rong's complexion changed drastically. He instinctively used his divine sense to summon several huge puppets to block in front of him. The screams of the disciples and the shattering of the puppets could be heard. When the gale dissipated, Zhao Rong saw the scene in front of him clearly. His pupils constricted and his hair stood on end. 1,000 people. They were actually surrounded by 1,000 people. As for the disciples of Towering Wave Palace that he had brought with him, all of them had suffered injuries of varying degrees. "Who are you? Why did you attack my Towering Wave Palace?" Zhao Rong had just finished speaking when he saw a handsome youth descend in front of Qingjio. Seeing that Qingjio was covered in cuts and bruises and had lost his divine soul, Zhang Xian was stunned. Luo Yu's eyes were about to split open. The anger in his chest almost caused him to lose control of his rationality. Second senior brother. He squatted down to help Qingjio up. Finally, he could not hold back his tears and dripped onto his face. "Second senior brother, how did you get injured to this extent?" Qingjio's eyes were wide open, but his pupils were covered with a layer of white veil. He turned a deaf ear to Luo Yu's words, completely like a puppet. Chapter 3391. Luo Yu panicked and pressed on Qingjio's heart. Only after confirming that he still had a heartbeat did she heave a sigh of relief. "Second senior brother, don't be afraid. I'll take you to Sixth senior sister immediately. Sixth senior sister is so powerful. She'll definitely be able to cure you. Right now, I'll make those who hurt you pay 100 times, 1,000 times the price." Luo Yu slowly stood up and looked coldly at Zhao Rong and the others. He didn't notice. Qingjio's fingers by his side moved slightly. A tear seemed to flow down from the corner of his eyes. His tightly pursed lips also relaxed. "It's Xiaoqi. Xiaoqi is here. Great, he's back at the Carefree sect. He's home." Zhao Rong stared at Luo Yu and said sternly, "Who are you?" "I'm Elder Zhao of Overwave Temple. This person is a thief who stole an important person from Overwave Temple. You're so close to him. Are you an accomplice of the thief?" Luo Yu looked at Zhao Rong and the others as if she was looking at dead people. "What's the use of knowing whether they are accomplices or not? You're going to die soon anyway. Impudent. You dare speak to Elder Zhao like that? Kid, don't be too arrogant. Do you think you can stop us with this 1,000-man army? The army is strong, but if we just want to escape, you might not be able to stop us. Once we return to Towering Wave Hall, what awaits you is a miserable doomsday." As an elder of Overwave Temple, Zhao Rong's cultivation had reached the mountain opening realm. The 1,000-man army was indeed troublesome, but he didn't believe he couldn't escape. But the next moment, Zhao Rong saw a red soul pearl appear behind the youth's back. The giant Defying divine beast spread its wings in the air and let out a crisp cry that shook thousands of miles. After summoning the Defying divine beast, Luo Yu took out the puppets in his storage space one by one. They were just low-level elite puppets. At first, Zhao Rong didn't care at all. But when the puppets went from 10 to 100 to 2,000 to 3,000, the people of Overwave Temple were completely dumbfounded. But it wasn't over yet. At the same time, the surrounding Zhe Wanfeng, rocks, grass huts, snakes, insects, rats, and ants seemed to be attracted by some power and started to gather around the youth. Slowly, they formed one puppet after another. Zhao Rong had never seen so many puppets in his life. It was as if the entire mountain was filled with an army of puppets. Luo Yu said, "Uncle Wei, leave the puppet to me and the person to you. I want these bastards who hurt my second senior brother to die without a burial place." Wei Mian stared blankly at this scene for a long time, his eyes slightly red. Suddenly, he knelt on one knee and bowed. "As you command." "Yes, Your Highness." In the City Lord's residence of Carefree City. The Treading Wave Temple's human puppets are said to be humanoid puppets made from special materials. However, many people knew that these puppets were refined from living people. This process was extremely cruel, and it was as if the 3 souls and 7 spirits in a person's body were forcefully extracted. This is puppet transformation. Wei Mian paused for a moment before continuing. "I believe that second young Master Qin should have been made into a human puppet by the people of Towering Wave Palace. But the strange thing is that not just anyone can be made into a human puppet. The process is extremely complicated and can't be completed in a short time. If second young Master Qin had only been on the floating island for a few months, it's reasonable to say that he couldn't have succeeded. At this time, Muyin had already given Qin Jiao a preliminary treatment. But the situation wasn't ideal. Chapter 3392. Almost half of Qin Jiao's 3 souls and 7 spirits have disappeared. The center of his sea of consciousness is also bound by a rune. If it is forcibly destroyed, his entire sea of consciousness would be equivalent to being crippled. Even his external injuries cannot heal on their own because of the lack of his divine soul and spiritual awareness. Hearing Wei Mian's speculation, Mayan's eyes burst with a strong, murderous intent. But now is not the time to seek justice from Over the Waves Temple. "Sixth sister, can second brother still be saved?" Mayan says in a low voice. "Shao Qi, go with General Wei to Manky City again." Luo Yu stares blankly. "Now? Why? Do you still remember the soul-nurturing pond?" Luo Yu ponders for a moment, then suddenly asks, "Fourth sister, the place where Mother went to repair the soul." Mayan nods. "You and General Wei go get some soul-nurturing pond water. Whether his second brother or that Miss Shao Qing, they both need the soul-nurturing pond to stabilize their almost broken souls. During this time, I will stabilize second brother and Shao Qing's condition." "Okay, I will go quickly and come back quickly." Luo Yu holds Qin Jiao's hand. "Second brother, you have to wait for me. Manky City, outside the soul-nurturing pond." Lung Yuma looks at the little monk with a headscarf and scholar's clothes, and can't help but burst out laughing. Jing Yuan's fair cheeks flush, and he doesn't know what to do with his hands and feet. He subconsciously puts his palms together, wanting to say Ba. "Don't." Lung Yuma stifles her laughter and forcibly presses down his palms. "If you do this, we will be exposed. I can't let people believe that I will find a little monk who has nothing but emptiness to be my lover, right?" Jing Yuan's face turns redder. After a long while, he looks down at the hand that Lung Yuma is holding and stutters, I know, female benefactor. Please let go, men and women should not touch each other." Huffed. Lung Yuma can't help but burst out laughing again. She doesn't know why. She clearly just met this little monk, but she especially likes to tease him, especially seeing him at a loss. With his fair cheeks flushed, she can't help but laugh. She can't help but want to reach out and pinch him. "Little monk, didn't you say that you wanted to pretend to be a couple with me? You didn't even call my name and said that men and women shouldn't touch each other. How do you expect the disciples of the Great Geese sect to believe you?" Jing Yuan coughed lightly. May I know your name? My name is Lung Yuma. Lung Yuma did not keep him in suspense. She used her large knife to draw 3 words on the ground. Remember, don't make a mistake in the soul cultivation pool. Otherwise, if someone sees through you, you might be chased out. The little monk lowered his long eyelashes and stared at the 3 words for a while before he raised his head and said obediently, Little monk, cough. I'll remember it. Lung Yuma thought for a moment, then said, You are called Jing Yuan? Is that your Buddhist name? It doesn't sound like a cultivator's name. Do you have a secular name? Why don't we change it for now? Hearing this question, Jing Yuan was stunned. He looked a little absent-minded and even sorrowful. Lung Yuma's heart skipped a beat, and she quickly said, If you don't remember your secular name, then forget it. Jing Yuan is also not bad, really. She knew that many little monks were homeless orphans and were adopted in the temple since young. It was normal for them not to know their secular name. Jing Yuan seemed to have recovered at this moment. The corners of his lips curled up slightly, and he slightly lowered his eyes. It's okay. It's just that it's been too long since anyone asked for my secular name, so much so that I almost forgot it. After a pause, he said in a deep voice, My name is Blood Moon. Before I became a Buddhist, my name was Blood Moon. Chapter 3393. Blood Moon? Lung Yuma was stunned. She looked at Jing Yuan from head to toe, suspecting that she had heard wrongly. The little monk in front of her had red lips, white teeth, and tender skin. Just a slight joke would make him blush and flustered. No matter how she looked at it, it did not match with the cold-blooded and cruel name of Blood Moon. Moreover, this name was not ordinary at all, okay? It was even more eye-catching than Jing Yuan. Blood Moon. Shouldn't it be the standard name of an assassin or assassin? Could it be that this guy used to be an assassin? However, looking at the little monk's crystal-clear eyes, his fair cheeks that were easily dyed red, and his delicate facial features that looked especially shy when he smiled, Tistiske, how does he look like an assassin? If she stood beside him, wouldn't she look more like a female bandit who forced a girl to become a prostitute? Jing Yuan felt uncomfortable being stared at by Lung Yuma, female benefactor. Cough, cough. Yuma, can we go in now? Lung Yuma had heard from the people in the town that there were 3 checkpoints to enter the soul nurturing pool. The first checkpoint was to test if the couple's minds were connected. The second checkpoint was to interrogate the disciples of the Great Goose Sect, mainly to screen the moral character of the person who entered. If greedy people were to enter the soul nurturing pool, it might cause unnecessary trouble. The third checkpoint was set around the real soul nurturing pool. The people of the Great Goose Sect would constantly supervise from the side to ensure that the couple who entered would not become enemies. Once the couple was no longer a couple, they would be politely expelled from the soul nurturing pool. When she heard the content of the 3 checkpoints, Lung Yuma's mouth twitched. The founder of the Great Goose Sect really wanted to see the couple get together. At the start, Lung Yuma was most worried about the last checkpoint. After all, she and the little monk were fake lovers. Whether they were connected or not, as long as the array checked, it would be clear. However, she did not expect that when the 2 of them walked through the array hand in hand, it did not cause the slightest ripple. That we passed through so easily? I was clearly ejected just now. Lung Yuma looked at Jing Yuan in surprise. How did you do it? Or is it that as long as you bring a man in, the array will recognize you as a couple? Jing Yuan just smiled gently and didn't say anything. Lung Yuma tried to pull her hand away, but it did not move. Hey, little monk, we have already passed the first test. Do we still need to hold hands? Jing Yuan's gaze slowly fell on their intertwined hands. Only then did he feel the soft and warm touch and the thin calluses left on his palm from years of holding a saber. The little monk's fair and handsome face flushed with heat. He hurriedly let go of her hand and said incoherently, I'm sorry, little monk. I'm offended. I didn't mean to. Lung Yuma wanted to tease the little monk when she saw him like this. But before she could tease him, The sound of light footsteps came from not far away. Lung Yuma's heart tightened. She held Jing Yuan's hand again without hesitation and leaned forward. Jing Yuan's eyes widened and his body stiffened. He subconsciously lowered his head to look at their hands that were once again intertwined. It was as if he could hear his own heartbeat beating like a drum. Could it be that Miss Yuma? However, he had promised his master and second senior brother that he would convert to Buddhism and never touch the mortal world again. Moreover, the two of them belonged to different worlds, and he would leave the floating island sooner or later. Chapter 3394. But if he rejected her, would Miss Yuma be sad? In just a few seconds, the little monk's mind was in a mess. But at this moment, Lung Yuma whispered, "Pretend to be a couple with me. Someone is coming." Jing Yuan then realized that Lung Yuma wasn't not. The little monk's face was so red that it could drip water. "Are you the new couple?" A clear and bright female voice rang out. Then, a man and a woman walked out. The man had thick eyebrows and big eyes. He was tall and strong, but he looked a little silly. The woman was wearing a military uniform and had a silver spear on her back. The two of them were very intimate, especially the way the man looked at the woman was full of love and pampering. It was obvious that they were a couple. Lung Yuma was surprised. Even the guards in the soul-nurturing pool are couples? "I'm asking you. Why aren't you answering? Are you deaf or mute?" The woman asked again. Lung Yuma came back to her senses and smiled. "Senior, we are a couple. We want to enter the soul-nurturing pool. What's your name? Which sector family are you from? Why do you want to enter the soul-nurturing pool?" Lung Yuma said what they had discussed at the beginning. Jing Yuan didn't say anything. As she spoke, the woman quickly took notes, while the man stared at the two of them with his big eyes. When Lung Yuma stopped, the man turned around and said in a muffled voice. "I'm lying, but I don't have any bad intentions." Lung Yuma's heart skipped a beat. It can't be. Could it be that this man could tell if someone was lying? Didn't that mean that her fake relationship with the little monk had been exposed? After the man finished speaking, he took out a token and handed it over. He smiled and said, "Everyone has their own little secrets. The Hongyan sect just wants to make sure that those who enter the soul cultivation pool are not greedy people. We don't want to investigate your privacy. Our secret technique can only detect if you're lying or if you have bad intentions, but it won't really probe into your secrets." Lung Yuma let out a sigh of relief. She smiled and reached out to take the token. "Wait, we can't give you the pass yet." The woman suddenly spoke, giving everyone a fright. However, the man still obediently took the token back. Lung Yuma frowned. "What do you mean by this?" The woman snorted coldly and glanced at the two of them. She said coldly, "I suspect that you two are not a real couple." Whoosh! Lung Yuma's heart was in her throat again. She forced herself to calm down and said, "What do you mean? If we weren't a couple, how could we have passed through the array in front?" The man couldn't help but say, "Shuyan, what they said makes sense." "Humph. My intuition tells me that there isn't even the slightest hint of affection between the two of them. How are they a couple?" That man didn't even dare to look at anyone the entire time. He was clearly afraid. Cold sweat broke out on Lung Yuma's back. What kind of intuition was that? He could even tell if they were lovers or not. The woman's scrutinizing gaze swept across the two of them once more as she continued. "If you want to prove that you're a real couple, you just have to tell me how you met and fell in love with each other. If my husband feels that you're lying throughout the entire process, that must be fake." Chapter 3395. This method was obviously very fair, so the man no longer objected. As long as the two were a real couple, they would definitely be able to describe the details of their relationship. Even if they had to hide some important information, with his secret technique, he would definitely be able to tell the truth. However, Lung Yuama and Jing Yuan could not do it, because they were not a real couple at all. Not only were they not a couple, but they had also just met. The woman sneered, "What? Can't say it. Or do you not dare to say it? I don't care how you pass through the formation. but the soul-nurturing pool cannot be entered unless you are a couple. This is an iron rule. If you're not a couple, please leave as soon as possible. Jing Yuan slightly lowered his eyes and pressed his slender fingers on his waist. However, at this moment, Lung Yuma suddenly let out a long sigh and said dejectedly, "I admit, we hid the most important thing." Jing Yuan paused and turned his head to look at her. However, before he could see Lung Yuma's expression clearly, his clothes were suddenly grabbed, followed by strong force. Jing Yuan was dragged forward by Lung Yuma a few steps and was almost stuck to Lung Yuma. Then, he felt a chill on his head. The scarf on his head was pulled off, revealing his smooth head and the ring scar that could not be ignored. The two people from the Hanyan sect were instantly dumbfounded. "A monk!" Lung Yuma's face was full of guilt. "Now you know what I was hiding, right? Actually, his name is not Lu Jingyuan, but Jingyuan. He is a monk." The aggressive woman pointed at Lung Yuma with a face full of horror, then pointed at the little monk. You and the monk are... Yes, we are a couple." Lung Yuma held the little monk's hand tightly, slightly lowered her eyes, and said shyly, "I passed by the temple where Jing Yuan is and fell in love with him at first sight. However, he has already escaped to become a monk, and we have to stop being silly and angry. Disturbing a monk's cultivation should be punished by the heavens, not to mention that his master is against us. Even if I know that we are truly in love, our feelings are not going to last for long." As she spoke, Lung Yuma's eyes were already filled with tears. The two people from the Hanyan sect were dumbfounded. Even the little monk turned his head and looked at him with a dazed and bewildered expression. "I also thought of giving up. I thought that it would be better to continue our relationship in the next life. But this is a once-in-a-lifetime love affair. How could I give up so easily? Maybe it was my sincerity and persistence that finally moved him and made him willing to try and accept me." However, when he escaped to Buddhism, he swore to dedicate his body, mind, and soul to Buddha. Once he returned to the secular world, it was equivalent to betraying the original oath. His soul would slowly be eroded until he lost consciousness. I think that maybe the water in the soul-nurturing pool can repair his soul. Lung Yuma stretched out her hand and gently caressed the little monk's white and tender cheeks. Her voice was low and hoarse. "Jing Yuan, if it's possible, I'd rather bear all the pain and torture myself. It's enough to exchange my life for our love." The small monk tried his best to control himself so that the corners of his mouth wouldn't twitch and his face wouldn't reveal an expression that would expose him. At this moment, he really admired the woman in front of him from the bottom of his heart. How did she come up with such a story in such a short time? However, would that shrewd female cultivator really believe such an absurd story? Well said. Chapter 3396. In 1 second. 800 mail sign, small divided by talk, net. Wonderful pop-up window, free reading. The female cultivator who was looking down on them just now walked forward and hugged Lung Yuma's shoulder. She said excitedly, "Little girl, what you said is too good. We, the children of the pugilistic world, should be free to love and hate. As long as you like a man, you should courageously chase after him. So what if he is a monk? Who said that monks can't return to secular life? I support the love between you and the little monk. If this little monk's master dares to make irresponsible remarks and obstruct you, you can tell me, and I will take care of him for you." Lung Yuma smiled calmly. "Thank you, sister, but there is no need to trouble sister. Since it is a man that I like, I naturally have to chase after him, protect him, and guard him myself. How can I trouble sister?" Good. Well said." The female's eyes lit up. She looked at Lung Yuma as if she had found a confidant. Why didn't I realize that sister was such a straightforward and unrestrained woman? You really suit sister's taste. I hate those pretentious women who look delicate on the outside, but are full of evil tricks. The man beside her coughed lightly. Shuyan, what she said just now. Many of them were lies. However, before he could finish his sentence, he was chased away by the female. Shoo, we women are talking. Why are you interrupting? Sister, let me reintroduce myself. I am Lu Shuyin. This is your brother-in-law, Songwu. We are both disciples of the Great Goose Sect. I like you, so I will recognize you as my sister today. When you and brother-in-law get married in the future, you must call me. Lung Yuma smiled and nodded. All right. If Jing Yuan can recover his soul in the soul-nurturing pool, sister and brother-in-law will be our benefactors and matchmakers. How can you two be missing on the day of the wedding? Lu Shuyin smiled happily. She felt that this sister of hers was really to her liking. Song Wu, who was at the side, was anxious at first. Then he could not help but let out a long sigh. He looked at Lu Shuyin with a helpless and doting smile. Let's go. Sister will bring you to the entrance of the soul-nurturing pool now. There were originally a lot of people queuing there, but I like you guys, so I will let you go in first. Lung Yuma pulled Jing Yuan's hand. What are you waiting for? Aren't you going to thank this sister? The little monk's face turned red, and a trace of redness appeared on his fair and delicate face. His long eyelashes slightly trembled, and after a long time he said in a low voice, "Thank you, big sister." Her blushing face was young and pure, like the cleanest crystal in the world that had been dyed crimson with a gorgeous luster. Moreover, the little monk's appearance was far more handsome than an ordinary person's. Lu Shuyin was stunned for a while before sighing. I finally understand why you fell in love with the little monk at first sight and insisted on marrying him. Because she was truly a feast for the eyes. As they spoke, they had already passed through a long and narrow mountain path. The road ahead suddenly opened up, revealing a vast piece of flat land and dozens of people. Some of them were meditating, some were anxiously pacing back and forth, and some were chatting. Moreover, it could be seen that they were basically couples. Lung Yuma even saw a couple of men in the middle. The amount of energy that the soul-nurturing pool can provide at one time is limited, so once the limit is reached, the remaining people will have to wait here. Only when someone has recovered from the soul-nurturing pool will the people waiting here have the qualifications to enter. Lung Yuma nodded and followed Lu Shuyin and her husband into the pool. Chapter 3397. Seeing Lu Shuyin, everyone gathered around her excitedly. Elder Lu, Elder Song, how long will it take for the next wave of people to fully recover? We've been waiting here for a few days already. Lu Shuyin rolled her eyes, without any enthusiasm towards Lung Yuma. She said impatiently, "If you're tired of waiting, why don't you just go out? Why are you shouting in my ear? Cough this, I'm just impatient. Last time, that old man and that old woman clearly came later than us, but they went in first. This isn't fair, right?" Lu Shuyin frowned. They entered the soul-nurturing pool to treat their illness. What about you guys? Do you think I don't know what you're doing in there with such minor injuries? My ancestors left the soul-nurturing pool to benefit the cultivators who might be separated by life and death, not for you shameless people to profit from. If you dare to talk nonsense again, do you believe that I won't ask my husband to throw you out? The few people who were shouting immediately shrunk their necks and kept quiet, afraid that they would really be thrown out if they said another 2 sentences. The injuries to their souls were negligible, so they came here to get some soul-nurturing pool water to sell. After rebuking these black-hearted merchants, Lu Shuyin smiled at Lung Yuma. "Sister Yuma, don't worry. There's a couple who will come out in 2 hours. At that time, you and the little monk can go in to treat your illness first." "Thank you, sister." Before Lung Yuma could finish her words of thanks, a cry of surprise came from behind. "Yuma! Yuma, is it really you?" Lung Yuma turned around, her eyes widened, and she said in surprise, "Grandfather, why are you here?" The person who called out to her was her grandfather, Lung Yaoshan, who had ascended to the floating island with Lung Ruolin and Lung Jishuan. Lung Yaoshan saw his granddaughter, and his eyes turned red. Separated from the 2 worlds, he thought that he would never see any of his family again. Grabbing his granddaughter's hand, he looked her up and down. Lung Yaoshan's lips trembled, but he couldn't say a word for a long time. "Sister Yuma, Didn't you say that you're a rogue cultivator without a sect? Why do you have a grandfather? Before Lung Yaoshan could say anything, Lu Shuyan had already spoken suspiciously. Lung Yuma's heart skipped a beat, the cold sweat on her forehead almost dripping down. Before she could even give her grandfather a meaningful glance, she heard Lung Yaoshan say to Lu Shuyan with a face full of guilt, "Elder Lu, you might not know this, but my granddaughter's biological father is a terrible person. She ran away from home when she was young, and I didn't take care of her for a single day. Later on, in order to treat my daughter's illness, I abandoned her alone. As a grandfather, I have truly let her down. I didn't expect Yuma to be acquainted with you, Elder Lu. It's all thanks to Elder Lu that I was able to wait for my daughter to come out. I didn't expect you to take care of my granddaughter. We are truly unable to repay your great kindness to us." Lu Shuyan waved her hand, telling Lung Yaoshan not to stand on ceremony. Her impression of Lung Yuma had risen by a few points. He held her hand and began to ask her why her biological father was not a good person. The cold sweat on Lung Yuma's forehead almost dripped down. She answered carefully, trying her best not to let Lu Shuyan think that she came to the soul cultivation pool for her mother. Lu Shuyan didn't care about this at all. Hearing about her father's actions, she simply gritted her teeth in anger. Chapter 3398. Abandoning him after using him, harming him. Your father is really a bad person. Younger sister, you have to keep your eyes open when you look for a man in the future. Even if this little monk looks kind and gentle now, you can't be captivated by his beauty. You may know a person's face, but not his heart. Who knows how many good men there are in this world? Song Wu, who was innocently implicated, could only rub his nose helplessly. He looked at Lu Shuyan with an indescribably gentle gaze. However, Lung Yaoshan's eyes widened when he heard that. What did you say? Yuma and this little monk, R.R. Under the watchful eyes of Lu Shuyan and her grandfather, Lung Yuma bit the bullet and held the little monk's hand. Grandfather, this is my fiancée. This. Yuma, you just came to Fu. You just came here. How did you find a fiancé so quickly? Furthermore, he was a monk. No way. This matter must be considered at length. Lung Yuma felt a headache coming on. At that moment, the barrier in front of them flashed with white light, and a couple walked out with smiles on their faces. Lung Yuma felt as if she had been pardoned. She grabbed the little monk's hand and looked at Lu Shuyan. "Sister Lu, my darling's injuries are serious and he can't hold on any longer. Please send us in immediately." As he spoke, he pinched the back of Jing Yuan's hand. The small monk's fair cheeks were flushed red. In the end, he stiffly leaned over and rested his head on Lung Yuma's shoulder, making a weak expression. Sure enough, Lu Shuyan, this enthusiastic person, no longer had any interest in investigating Lung Yuma's background. She directly pushed the two of them into the barrier. Is this the soul cultivation pool? He could feel the thin mist around him and the wonderful feeling of his soul being cleansed. Lung Yuma could not help but exclaim. A stream appeared in front of them. However, the water in the stream was not clear and transparent, but milky white. This is only the accompanying stream of the soul-nurturing pool. It's not the real soul-nurturing pool. Jing Yuan pulled Lung Yuma forward. "Follow me. The real soul-nurturing pool is in front." Sure enough, it was just as the little monk had said. As the two of them moved forward, the fog in the air became thicker and thicker. The color of the stream also became milky white and smooth. At the side of the stream, couples began to appear. These people usually didn't have serious soul injuries and only needed to be in this accompanying stream to recover. The deeper she went, the more anxious Lung Yuma became. Mother and Uncle Zhixian are inside? Yes, if grandfather was here, then mother must be inside. However, at that time, her mother's 3 souls and 7 mortal forms were almost completely shattered. Could she really cure her? Be careful. Lung Yuma was in a daze and did not notice that the soil under her feet had become soft. His body tilted and fell into the milky white stream. Her waist tightened, and before she could use the spiritual energy in her body, she was pulled back. The tip of her nose smelled a refreshing sandalwood fragrance, and her body was pressed against a broad and firm chest. He could hear the faint thumping of his heartbeat. Lung Yumal raised her head. She heard the clear and gentle voice of the little monk. Yumal, are you all right? I'm fine. Her ears quietly turned red. It was rare for Lung Yumal to be at a loss of what to do. She pushed the little monk's chest and said with a forced smile, Little monk, you look thin and weak, but your figure is not bad at all. Thank you for just now. I was too engrossed in thinking and did not see my feet clearly. I will be careful from now on. Chapter 33:99. After a pause, her voice inexplicably became somewhat bashful. Hey, are you done hugging? I already said that I will be careful from now on. The little monk suddenly came back to his senses and took a few steps back. However, he accidentally stepped into the stream behind him. Seeing his slow and bashful appearance, Lung Yumal could not help but burst out laughing. This time, it was her turn to reach out and pull him back. I say, little monk. Lung Yumal reached out and patted his chest. This lady isn't shy yet. What are you shy about? If you continue to reveal such a beautiful appearance, this elder sister will be moved and snatch you back to be my husband. No, please conduct yourself, young lady. Lung Yumal raised her hand and lifted his chin. Looking at his fluttering eyelashes, the beads of sweat dripping from the bridge of his nose, and his slightly trembling lips, she wanted to tease him even more. Conduct myself? This lady is very light. How can I conduct myself? Why don't you teach me, little monk? As she spoke, she actually slowly approached the little monk's lips. Jing Yuan's eyes widened bit by bit as he tightly clenched his fists. If he wanted to retreat and push away the woman in front of him, it would be as easy as flipping his hand. However, as Lung Yumal approached, the tip of his nose smelled the unique scent of this girl. Open-minded, valiant, and full of vitality. It was a color that he had never seen before. It was like a ball of fire ignited in the coldest winter night, so warm, so bright. It naturally attracted people like him, eager to get close, eager to possess. The captivating red lips were just inches away, and they were getting closer and closer. A devilish desire suddenly arose in his heart. If he could capture her, would he be able to possess flames and light? No, everything has its own laws. It was like a dream, like dew and lightning. He promised his master that he would let go of the past and forget all his stubborn desires. Pucci, just as Jing Yuan's heart was struggling like it was in a pot of oil, he heard the girl's uncontrollable laughter. Really, it's not like I really want to molest you. Why do you have such a fearless expression on your face? Lung Yumal gently patted his chest and tidied up his wrinkled clothes. She then smiled and said, I was just teasing you. Why are you so scared? No matter how hungry I am, I can't possibly make a move on a little monk. Don't worry, your chastity will definitely be preserved, Master Jing Yuan. Jing Yuan's face turned red again, and his expression was one of grievance. There was also a trace of disappointment that even he himself did not notice. Haha, all right, I won't tease you anymore. Let's go to the soul-nurturing pool. She could not wait to see her mother. Umo, just as the two of them were about to separate, a familiar voice called out from behind them. It was Lung Zhishuan. Uncle Zhixian. Lung Yumal turned around excitedly. If Lung Zhishuan was here, then his mother must also be nearby. However, what greeted her was not the excitement and joy of reuniting with Lung Zhishuan after a long time, but the astonished and shocked expressions of the two of them. However, Lung Zhishuan was Lung Zhishuan. He quickly calmed down, walked forward with a smile, and looked her up and down. The surprise, astonishment, and joy in his eyes were all replaced by admiration. I once said that, Umo, you might become the greatest pride of the Lung family. Now that I think about it, I still underestimated you. Chapter 3400. Lung Jishuan remembered that it had only been half a year since he took Lung Ruolin to the floating island. At that time, what was Lung Ruolin's cultivation level? It seemed that she hadn't even reached the leaving body stage. But now, she was already at the peak of the tribulation stage. From a nascent soul stage to the tribulation stage in half a year, how many people in the world could achieve that? Are you the only one who came to the floating island? Of course not. Lung Yuma shook her head. Junior sister came first, and I followed closely behind. Everyone should have arrived at about the same time, but we were separated. Lung Jishuan, he was speechless for a moment. Just now he was still wondering how many people in the world could achieve that. But now Lung Yuma told him. What was this? For the Xiaoyao sect, this was nothing out of the ordinary. Lung Jishuan was stunned for a long time before he couldn't help but laugh. You must be anxious to see your mother, right? I'll take you there. He didn't ask what the relationship between Lung Yuma and the little monk was. Who was the little monk? He just smiled and led them forward while telling them about his experiences in the past 6 months. In the beginning, they weren't qualified to enter the soul-nurturing pool. Lung Jishuan accompanied Lung Ruolin outside and took care of her meticulously. Then, he tried to pass through the barrier every day. Unexpectedly, on a certain day a few months ago, he suddenly succeeded. Lung Jishuan slightly tilted his head, not daring to look at Lung Yuma's eyes. Lung Yuma burst out laughing. Uncle Jishuan, we've already seen your affection for my mother in the cultivation continent. I'm more than happy that you can have a family and that my mother can find someone to rely on for the rest of her life. Are you worried that I'll break up the affectionate couple? Or do you want me to call you father instead? Lung Jishuan blushed and coughed lightly. Impudent. There was a smile in his eyes, and after a moment, he said softly, Yuma, thank you. Thank you for agreeing to let me be with Ruolin without any grudges. Thank you even more for bringing Ruolin back alive from that hell. Mother. Seeing the person soaking in the spring, Lung Yuma rushed over excitedly and hugged her tightly. The woman in the pool looked somewhat similar to Lung Yuma, but she looked more mature. But his expression was as innocent as child's. Who are you? Why are you calling me mother? Mother? Don't you recognize me? I'm UMO. Lung Ruolin tilted her head, and her eyes seemed to be moved. UMO. UMO. What nice name. I seem to have heard it somewhere before. Lung Jishuan's gentle voice came from behind. Under the restoration of the soul-nurturing pool, Ruo Lin's consciousness gradually recovered, but her memory seems to have been lost, and her mind has returned to when she was a child. Seeing Lung Jishuan coming down, Lung Ruolin immediately threw herself into his arms like a swallow and rubbed against him intimately. Jishuan, you're here. I've waited for you for so long. Don't leave me alone, okay? All right. Lung Jishuan's voice was gentle, and his eyes were full of this shadow. I will stay by Ruo Lin's side for the rest of my life, and I won't go anywhere. After saying that, he looked up and saw Lung Yuma's disappointed expression. He said guiltily, Ruo Lin's injuries are extremely serious. It will take at least 2 years for her to fully recover. Maybe it's because I'm the only one by her side when she recovers, so I'm the only one left in her memory. But I think she'll be able to remember you after 2 years. Chapter 3401. Lung Yuma shook her head and said softly and sincerely, It doesn't matter. As long as mother can live well, I will be satisfied. Uncle Jishuan, I will have to trouble you to take care of my mother in the future. After saying that, she turned around and walked out of the pool without any reluctance. Yuma, are you leaving just like that? Lung Yuma turned around and looked at the 2 people who were snuggling together. Her lips curled into a bright smile. I came to the soul-nurturing pool this time, mainly to see if mother has recovered well. Now that I have seen it, I should go find my senior and junior brothers and sisters. Uncle Jishuan, you and mother have your lives, and I also have my own pursuits. I just want to know that you are living well and living a happy life, that is enough." After saying that, she did not look at Lung Yishuan and Lung Roland's reaction and quickly walked to the shore. "Little monk, is this the place where you want to get the soul-nurturing pool water?" After Lung Yuma asked, she found that the little monk did not answer for a long time. Suddenly, a hand touched her cheek and gently wiped away the water droplets on her face. These water droplets were all stained by the soul-nurturing pool. They hung on the tip of her eyebrows, the corner of her eyes, and the side of her cheeks like tears. The little monk's hand was not as rough and warm as other men's. Instead, it carried a jade-like warmth and coolness. Although it was obviously cold, it suddenly burned her whole face. "Little monk, what are you doing?" Lung Yuma grabbed the hand that was messing around on her face. When she raised her head, she saw Jing Yuan's pitiful and distressed expression. Slightly stunned, her heart suddenly jumped, and then she could not help but laugh. "Little monk, are you afraid that I am sad? Don't worry, I am really happy for my mother. If she can live a happy life, what does it matter if she remembers me or not? I only need to remember that she used to love and give to me, and that is enough." Moreover, when did she not have anything? She still had the Xiaoyao sect and her fellow disciples. Thinking about being able to reunite with everyone soon, her heart was filled with joy and anticipation. Jing Yuan's mind was almost sucked into the pair of eyes that were even brighter than the stars. He only felt that the skin that his fingers touched was so soft and smooth, but it also burned his fingertips and soul. He actually touched Yuma's face. The small monk quickly retracted his hand as if he had been scalded. Thinking of what he had just done, he was so embarrassed that he didn't even know where to put his hands and feet. Lung Yuma had already thrown the strange feeling to the back of her mind. She patted him heavily and smiled. "Let's go. You accompanied me to see my mother. Now it's my turn to accompany you to get the soul-nurturing pond water. The water here is already so rich. Are you still not satisfied? Wait. In front of us is the core area of the soul-nurturing pool. If you want to leave this place in one piece, you better not trespass." The ones who stopped Lung Yuama and Jing Yuan were two men wearing the same clothes as Lu Shuyin and her husband. According to the rules of the soul-nurturing pool, only couples could enter. Lung Yuma could not help but size up the two handsome men from head to toe, and could not help but mutter in her heart, "Another same-sex couple? It can't be, right? Are there so many people like Fifth Senior Brother these days?" Cough. Did you two hear what we said? Lung Yuma came back to her senses and could not help but ask, "The soul-nurturing pool is used to help people heal. Could it be that there is some kind of danger inside? Or could it be that there was some kind of treasure in the core area that the Hongyan sect was afraid of being stolen by greedy cultivators, so they sent people to guard it?" Chapter 34:02. As if they had seen through Lung Yuma's thoughts, the two of them chuckled with disdain. "If you have the ability, you can take the things inside. It will save us the trouble of guarding this place all day, afraid that someone will accidentally enter and their soul will be destroyed." These words made Lung Yuma surprised. What exactly was it that could destroy a person's soul upon touching it? "I know you want to obtain the purest and densest soul-nurturing pool water in the core area, but the price you have to pay is not something you can bear. I advise you to obediently return to the pool in front. The soul power in the water is already strong enough." However, the little monk's expression was gentle and shy, but his attitude was abnormally firm. In the end, the two people from the Great Goose sect coldly snorted and chose to let them pass. However, they looked at them with an unfriendly gaze. "Since you want to go in, you will be responsible for what happens later. Even if you shout until your throat breaks, we will definitely not come in to save you." Although the words of the same-sex couple from the Great Goose sect were unpleasant to hear, Lung Yuma was not disgusted at all. This sect was really compassionate. Although the soul-nurturing pool only allowed couples to enter, they did not charge any fees. Even if someone wanted to take away the pool water, they would turn a blind eye. For such a dangerous place, there were even people guarding it, just to prevent people from getting hurt. This is the core area of the soul-nurturing pool. Seeing the scene in front of her, Lung Yuma was dumbstruck. Why is it completely different from the outside? There was a small pool in front of her, and the water in the pool was boiling. However, the water was not clear and transparent, nor was it milky white and smooth. Instead, it was scarlet red like magma. How could this kind of water nourish the soul? It was even possible to directly burn a person's 3 souls and 7 spirits. PFFF. Suddenly, a huge bubble burst at the side of the pool. Red water droplets splashed towards Lung Yuma. Be careful. Jing Yuan immediately reached out and pulled Lung Yuma to his side. However, a drop of water still fell on her sleeve. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. Half of the sleeves of her clothes, which were enchanted with defensive attributes, were instantly burned off, revealing her fair arms. She could still faintly feel the scorching heat on her skin. What is this? How can it be so powerful? Lung Yuma looked at the little monk in shock. You want to take this water back to treat your master? Was this a cure or a death sentence? Jing Yuan also frowned slightly. I didn't expect that the soul cultivation pool here had existed for so many years, and it had been constantly cleansed by willpower, that it had developed a self-purification ability. All the purified impurities are deposited here. In other words, the pure soul-nurturing pond water he was looking for was in this terrifying blood pond. Jing Yuan said, Miss Yuma, please step back. Lung Yuma complied and retreated. The little monk took out a golden-red kasaya and draped it over his body before slowly walking toward the blood pool. Little monk, what are you going to do? Don't force yourself. Jing Yuan turned around and gave her a shy smile before stepping into the blood pool. His dash. Lung Yuma took in a breath of cold air. Just now, he had only touched a drop of it on his sleeve, and it was already burned through. Wasn't the little monk playing with his life if he continued walking like that? However, at the next moment, a miraculous scene appeared. The little monk, who was wearing a kasaya, acted as though he didn't feel the heat of the pool. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.